completely wrong.
My ass hanging out.
Dude, I knew some people. I'm just gonna say I knew some people back in the day that would be a legit concern that they would be doing shit like that.
Cook on the
All
table.
right. So, good lord. Um, we will. Oh,
What?
is there? Hmm. I need to change that command then. All right. There's a double thing happening. Okay. All right. We'll wait just a few minutes for people to show up.
That's good. Yeah, I'm 21 years old now. That's I should update that.
Update that on what on your
Which
uh
like where it's like your about it has like two about me sections. It's weird.
oh, I gotcha, I gotcha.
It's like about DevineFPS. I'm like, oh, I need to update that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
keep wanting to call you Devin FPS.
I thought about doing Devin for a minute, but I
No.
don't know. I thought I didn't want to be Jake. I don't want to be the next Jake. You know, that's not the wave.
Does anybody want to be that? No, sorry.
But yeah, I want the Vine. Was Yankee Wolf. Good times. Fucking Ringer still calls me Yankee. It's funny. I was talking to him yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm still prone sometimes when I refer to you to call you that. Just
Yeah, most people do still. It doesn't matter to me.
what made you
I think
decide to change it though?
what's a Divine?
Yeah.
People didn't like me.
Oh.
That was purely it. I felt like there was like a cloud looming over my head every time like people would talk about me or like
Mm,
say my name Yankee. Like it had like a negative connotation to it, which it and to me it doesn't, but to others it might. So I didn't want to carry that over, especially to something like Valorant where I was going to be doing the right things and making the right choices, or at least trying to at my very best, right?
I gotcha.
So,
Hang on. Let me make sure that I'm professionally in my getup. Hang on. All
did you
right.
do your live tweet?
So, yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started as people come in. I mean, of course, this will always be up for people to check out, and it'll be up on the YouTube for the YouTube. God, I sound old. Um, the, the
Damn,
you
bro, he's referring to the YouTube. What a boomer.
the YouTubes. This will be on the YouTubes, right? For people to check out if they wanna catch it at another point in time. So,
Uh,
okay. So as always, so ridiculous. So as always, for anybody coming in, as we always kind of say at the beginning of these, as both a courtesy and out of respect for our guests, um, I have all alerts pretty much turned off. That includes host, raids, subs, anything like that follows. I sincerely appreciate all of that, but I believe is again a sense of journalistic professionalism to give all the undivided attention to the person who is willing to come on and be interviewed. So again, thank you all so much for that, but alerts are always turned off during the podcast. With that being said, as I always say, no one can introduce themselves better than the guest. So I will let Divine FPS underscore Valorant
you
underscore.
can call me Devin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will let my good buddy Devin introduce himself.
Hello. So, yeah, I'm a streamer or competitive player, competitive esports player, I guess is the best way to describe me. I've been playing like games and stuff like that since I was like really young. Competing in Overwatch, COD, CS:GO, and now currently Valorant. So, yeah, that's kind of who I am in terms of like an esports perspective. And then currently going to school and all that stuff. I think it's really about it. I think it's the best way to describe me.
Okay, so kind of going back, starting at the beginning, what got you into competitive gaming?
Dude, oh man. So I started playing COD from like a really young age, and then like eventually what game was it? It was Advanced Warfare. I had a friend of mine. We were playing. We were pub stomping, which is basically going into lobbies and you just you just run around, kill a bunch of people, and you just own people and you make them mad. It was really funny. Um, and so, but he was like, "Hey, like you're pretty good at this game. Would you be interested in doing competitive?" And I was like, "What do you mean competitive?" And he goes, "Like like game battles." I didn't know what game battles was at the time, so he basically showed me what game battles was and stuff like that. And basically it's just tournament play and like you could do competitive matches. And then eventually that led to like UMG, which was where it was the same sort of deal where it's like official matches and stuff like that, but there's also money on the line that you could do. So like for example, like the most common thing was like put $2 down, and you play for $2, and then whoever wins takes the other person's $2, like hence a wager. So that's kind of where I got started, and then I moved to once like I made like 2K earnings in COD like within like the first 6 months as like a like 13 or 14-year-old, so I didn't know what to do with it, and I couldn't even cash it out because I wasn't 18. So I had 2K and UMG just sitting there. But then I eventually moved to CS:GO because I noticed that in the COD scene, particularly when I was trying to compete, I was always wanting to go pro. I was always wanting to play in LANs, but in order to do that, I had to be 18, and that wasn't until 2018. I was at the time I was playing around like 2014, 2015. So I was still 15 years old, and so I wasn't able to go to those things. So I wanted to find an esport where that didn't really matter, or I could have a better chance at making a future in esports for myself. With COD, a lot of the other pros and stuff like that, there was not a lot of fresh talent, I would say, for a good bit until like more recently, I would say, like the past few years. So I went to CS:GO, started playing CS:GO. I enjoyed it, and then I I got to like MG2, which is like all right, it's like Masters, I guess, in Overwatch, and made B plus in ESCA, which was pretty cool. And then from there, I got into Overwatch, and that's kind of where I would say really I guess my true passion for esports really grew because esports was like a thing and like it was something that I cared about a lot, especially with CS:GO. But it was like I never really made a name for myself at all. Like I did like all right. I was like I was a noob, right? Basically in essence. So with Overwatch though, the way I got into it was kind of interesting because I was still playing CS:GO and I had quit CS:GO for a bit and I was just like this was like yeah, I quit CS:GO and I was just chilling playing casual games and stuff like that. Like I was going back to COD here and there and I was starting to do wagers and stuff like that again. I was trying to figure out what game I wanted to really pursue because like I don't know, I'm a competitor and I really like competing and I wanted to find the best game for that I could really like I don't know, compete, you know what I mean, at the highest level. And so one of my friends, it was like just after Overwatch released. This is like a little year after like about a year afterwards, 6 months after Overwatch released. He was talking about how he played against NRG Esports, which had like at the time it had Seagull, it had Hard Blue, it had all the OGs. I was like, there's no way a bunch of my friends from fucking school are competing against these guys. Because I knew who they were, like my friends were, and they weren't that great at like games and stuff like that. I was like, what? I was like, okay, I could get into this. I was like, I could if they're competing those guys, I can do it. That shit's easy. And so I had that mentality and I told them like, yeah, I'd want to join you guys' team and stuff like that. But basically one of the guys on the team, or it wasn't my friend, but it was one of the guys on the team like that still went to my school, told me, he goes, yeah, you're never gonna be good at Overwatch. And I was like, and from that day forward, I don't know what it was that was in me, but it made me really fucking mad. Made me really mad to have someone tell me I couldn't do that or I couldn't do something like that. And I was like, you don't know me, obviously, because you wouldn't say that to me. And so, yeah, from there, as soon as he said that, I immediately just started putting hours into Overwatch. I started at like gold in season two, and then eventually I just started climbing higher and higher and higher and higher. And that's where like I would say I'm really proud of like how I did that in the manner of someone told me I couldn't do something and I went out and did it. I hit GM and shit like that. But along with that, I also learned like a huge lesson of how you like treat people because like for me, I'd never been in like a like on the top spectrum of competing. So I didn't know that like for example, like when you're in gold, you meet a bunch of people. You when you play a game, you probably won't see that person if you shit talk them. You know what I mean? Like or like say something bad like, "Hey, you guys like you suck." You know what I mean? Something like to be generic you won't see that person most likely for I don't know for a long time, right? But when the higher you go in terms of like competing, at least like at a higher level, that group of people gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and so you start to run into the same people. And so my biggest mistake when moving into esports like that, or like moving like into Overwatch, was again I came from COD and CS:GO, so the way I spoke and some of the things I said was very toxic to say the least. Um, but I digress. So yeah, then I got into Overwatch, started competing in Overwatch Tier 3, and then I did that for God, I think 4 to 5 years, right? I think that's how long has Overwatch been out for? 6 years?
Going on that, yeah, close. Because
Yeah.
I think it was
So
2014, 2015, something like that.
yeah, so I competed in Overwatch for like 4 to 5 years, which is so weird to me. It did not feel like 4 to 5 years. So I competed in Overwatch for 4 to 5 years. Um, and around like I started competing and like trying to do team play at Masters when I was in Masters. So yeah, around 4 to 5 years. Um, and like I've had a shit ton of experience in that game in terms of competing, a lot of lessons learned. Yeah, so many lessons and stuff like that. Met a lot of great people. Some people I'll probably remember or be friends with for the rest of my life. And now, like when I retired, the reason I retired mainly was due to the fact that Overwatch, I felt like I'd given enough of a chance in terms of, developers and how they're running the game and stuff like that, as well as like how the scene is growing in terms of tier two and how they're managing that. As well as for myself, I felt like I gave myself enough time to let people like kind of forgive me for some of the things I did, because I bettered myself as a person in general over time. And I still felt that like some people still had like a chip on their shoulder about me or like felt a specific way. And so I just
Mhm.
wanted to get out of that. And so then I moved into Valorant, and that's where I am now. And honestly, I'm enjoying it so much. I just joined a team like 2 weeks ago. I'm working with a lot of guys that are good at the game, like legitimately good. They have a lot of the core basics and fundamentals down. And so now it's my job as like someone that's been competing in esports for a long time to make sure that a lot of these younger guys that are like new to competing in esports but not new to the game kind of take some of the lessons that I like or make sure they don't do the things that I did like in Overwatch and make the same mistakes that I did. So I'm kind of like I guess a vet in that way to where I'm trying to help them succeed as much as possible. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm at, and that's how my whole esports career went, or esports, yeah, career, I guess, yeah, so far.
So I know the answer to this, but for obviously the
Yeah.
audience sake, have you always been a competitive person?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Since 3 years old, I literally. So my mom was like, she was a fuck. She's like fifth dan or sixth dan in Taekwondo, and she went to World Games and stuff like that. So like growing up around that, even at like 2 or 3 years old, I was literally like three. I was like 2 or 3 years old, and I was asking my mom, "Yo, I want to do Taekwondo. I want to do Taekwondo. I want to do Taekwondo." Because I saw her competing, I was like, "Oh, dude, like I don't know what. I guess so. Yeah. Since I was like a kid, like I grew up in it. And I literally started like doing Taekwondo when I was like 3. You know what I mean? And then I just went all the way up until I was like I think 12 years old, and then like from there like yeah, that's realistically where my competing started because Taekwondo, I looked at the kid next to me and I'm like, I want to be good as him, or I want to do that. I want to be as good as my mom or my dad, or you know what I mean? Because they also did it too when I was younger. So yeah, that's kind of where it started for me. And then from there, like I would say sports is where my competitiveness really started was like Taekwondo and basketball. Those were like the two things. I did baseball a little bit. I didn't really care for it. It was meh. But like basketball was like that's where like I learned about hard work. I'm really thankful for as a kid I met really good coaches like as a young age. Even some of the dad coaches like taught me a lot as like you do need to work hard. Like they showed me work ethic. They showed me like fundamentals. They didn't show me. They didn't just show me, but they also laid a level of importance of how that affects you later on, right? Like if you work hard now, you're going to be better later, right? Or if you focus on your fundamentals now, then you don't have to worry about the later, and you're just going to only be better. You're only going to be just way better, like consistently, stuff like that. And that just has applied throughout my life in terms of like competing and my competitiveness.
Did you enjoy your time with martial arts when you did it?
Yes. Yes, I did a lot. I'd say towards the end, I didn't for the reason that I felt it was really weird to have it's silly because I look at it now and it's silly, but it was really hard for me to listen to mom about specific things, even though she's like a world class like martial artist. Like, cause she learned from General Che, even including who's the founder of Taekwondo. She learned from him and Master Nunes, who Master Nunes learned directly under General Che, and then Nunes worked with my mother, and she was like the number one world, like she was number one in the world for like board breaking for a long time, and even in sparring, she sparred against Master Nunes for God. I mean, before World Games, she even broke her rib before she went because they were sparring and going hard at it. So I did enjoy it, but towards the end, it started to I stopped enjoying it for the reason that I didn't like taking instruction from my mom because, rebellious teen kind of thing.
Hmm.
But I did enjoy it. And in fact, one of my biggest regrets is when I quit Taekwondo and I started like really going hard in basketball because I wanted to make a choice to like really commit to one or the other. As soon as I quit Taekwondo, they reached out to me and were like, "Hey, we want you to go to the Junior Olympics." And I was like, "Fuck that." Which I regret so much now because dude, that would have been so sick to say I went to the Junior Olympics and like literally kicked ass because that would have been sick because I was really good at board breaking and I really enjoyed sparring. I loved sparring, and it wasn't like some like there's some like sparring like where like in Taekwondo where they just go for points, but Texas when they spar, bro, they kick your ass. It's like you're fighting, bro. It's sick. It's really sick. So, but yeah, I didn't to answer the question. Yeah, I did really enjoy my time with martial arts. But yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's awesome. So, like with gaming in general. So you mentioned the beginning of like your esports career and all that. Going back just a little bit further with gaming, what got you started into it?
Into gaming,
Hmm.
my dad. It's cliche as if, but yeah, no, my dad. I think it was like dude, Nintendo 64, I think. It was like Donkey Kong. Literally, it was Donkey Kong and all that stuff on Nintendo 64. And when I would go to swim meets and stuff like that, because I also did swimming for like 2 or 3 years when I was younger. And dude, I loved competing in swimming too. But when we'd be on break or like if I was like up next or like waiting for my turn to go up and compete, I would literally be on my Game Boy, bro. Like I was literally that kid that was just on his Game Boy. I mean, I was that kid before it was cool, bro. And so I was on my Game Boy playing whatever it was. I even played Yu-Gi-Oh games, dude. You know what I mean? Like I was all about that on my Game Boy. So yeah, I was like Nintendo 64, Game Boy, PS2, and then where how I got into COD, which eventually led me to like esports, was like Medal of Honor. Do you know that? Did you ever hear of that game?
Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah, I played
old.
Medal. Yeah, 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 yeah. So I played Medal of Honor with my dad, and I loved 1v1ing him in Medal of Honor. I loved it. I loved like playing against him, and so that's how I got into that. And then eventually I got into Modern Warfare 2, which my dad introduced me to as well, which I was too young to play, which in my opinion I wasn't, but I was playing MW2 and I was owning these like guys that were like older like my age now. And I was like, damn, I'm really like good at this game. And I was like but the only part that my mom didn't like was the gore and all that, and so she was concerned about it. So she took me off for like 6 months to a year. She's like, you can't play that game. And then that only made me want to play it more. So whenever I could go to the friend's house and game. Oh man, I was all about it. And so that kind of like that's how I kind of got more and more into gaming and stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, in between, esports transitioning to Overwatch and then going to Valorant, we get into you deciding that in some form of fashion. I know we've talked about this off stream, but you wanting to be a content creator, or at the very least, stream. Um, what got you into streaming?
Um so my first experience with streaming or like seeing someone stream was actually like MLG.TV and seeing Nate Shot and Scum stream. And so I never really had the capability of streaming. So when it came available to me, like when I finally like got a PC, like made my PC, because originally I started on like a laptop and I still couldn't stream. It was just like I've never been a person to work a 9 to 5, and so like looking at streaming, it was like I could do that and not have a 9 to 5, not knowing like the work it took and all that stuff to do it, or like how to go about actually doing it. But for me, streaming was something that I don't know. I just looked at it as like that's something that could be really cool. Like you can do literally whatever you want for the most part, as long as it's within TOS, and it's something that you can like show to people and like I don't know. Streaming for me is like it's the same thing that it was for me in school, which was like an outlet. I always looked at like when I first got into streaming, it was just more of like streaming for friends and stuff like that. But the more I started to make like a smaller community and stuff like that, because there was a certain point where I was getting like pretty decent viewership within COD and even a little bit within Overwatch. I think the thing that I really enjoyed was like giving people like a space that they can like talk and chill and just like hang out, especially like people that go through like any sort of like that are just like have shit tough, like shit's tough, you know what I mean? Like they're going through hard times. I feel like it's really important for them to have like a space they can just really talk to someone or just be like hanging out within the community, you know what I mean? I feel like it's important to anyone. I mean, some people like to draw, some people like to watch TV shows, you know what I mean? But for some people they like to interact and they like to be involved in what they're actually like watching, right? And feel part of it and feel part of something. And I feel like what made me continue to stream. But what got me into streaming was just I didn't want to be like everyone else. I didn't want to do the 9 to 5. I just it was part of gaming, and I was like, that could be fun, and I tried it, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah,
Now you bring up an interesting point. You talk about creating a community where people can feel comfortable um, talking, relaxing, just having a good time. Did this kind of introspection, did this kind of affect how you saw things eventually with what you talked about earlier with your competitive gaming persona?
I
Where,
wouldn't say it was a persona. It's still a part of me,
well, no, no, no. I
but
mean,
yeah,
it's you had the dichotomy of the streamer and the competitive player, right?
yeah.
Did it kind of you reflect on what was going on in the
I couldn't
game?
watch. Yeah, yeah. I couldn't watch my when I really realized that I was like not only was I not like a great streamer, but I didn't like what I was like doing, like saying and stuff. Was I couldn't watch my own streams.
Hmm.
I legit like whenever I rage, I can't watch my own streams. It's just like I just cringe. I'm like, oh, that's so cringy. And it's not like a funny cringe. It's like, oh, because I used to be like, it wasn't like now when I rage, it's funny. I try to make it memesical because when I'm mad, I like, I raise my voice. I do some sort of like stupid shit, But back then, I would rage, legitimately rage, and like some people enjoyed it, and that's why they watch my stream. But for me, I couldn't watch my streams, and so yes, it did like the aspect of the community did make me kind of look into it more because I noticed some people were like not liking me or like blah, 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 or they didn't want to talk to me, hang out with me, or some shit because they had heard of that I was toxic. And so I watched some like I started looking at my own streams. I just couldn't watch them. I was like, okay, they're right. So then yes, I did like I had to like start toning back and not had to because I needed to for my own career, but for my own self because I couldn't watch my own streams. You know how sad that is to be putting out content and not enjoy what you're liking or not enjoy it yourself? That's so weird. It's such a weird concept. Like it's kind of the mentality of not being good enough almost in a way, but not to the same extent, right? Like some people have that issue. I mean, I even do, but it's like I couldn't watch my own stream, and that was so weird to me. I was like, if I don't enjoy my own stream, how else is anybody else gonna enjoy my stream,
Right.
right? And so I had to change that for myself. And so the aspect of the community, what really inspired me to do a community or try to build a community like that was actually Nick Merckx early on. I know he's huge now and like his community is way bigger, but he still holds the same thing of like a kind of like a family. You know what I mean? Like if you talk to him, he's just like he's an extremely fucking wholesome dude. He's like the one streamer I would say on Twitch that hands down I still check in on him every here and now. uh he's still like the same fucking dude. You know what I mean? Through all the success and stuff like that, he still treats people the same exact way. He's extremely friendly. Like, he's just down to earth guy. And that was kind of like what inspired me to kind of try to build my community in that aspect. Like I have notes of when I was starting to really like pursue streaming. And like one of the notes I had was when I'm building my community, I don't want an XQC community. I don't want a community that's toxic. I want a community like fucking Nick Merckx. Like that's the shit I want to do. I'm still like I'm not a big streamer at all anymore because I stopped putting out content and stuff like that and like pursuing that. But as long as I'm still streaming, that is my goal. You know what I mean? If I'm gonna build a community and if I do start getting big, that is my goal with my community is to have somewhere where people they have something like MFAM for Nick Merckx or not MFAM, whatever it's Nick Merckx fan. But yeah, that's kind of so yeah. I don't know if that answered your question. I think it did. I just went a little bit of
Yeah,
a
yeah,
tangent.
yeah. No, no, no. You're fine. No, it did answer the question, and it, interestingly enough, raises another question. So you mentioned kind of at the end there that it's not something that you're pursuing as much anymore. Have you kind of decided to go away from content creation in sake of focusing on
Time.
esports?
It's
Yeah,
time. I
right,
don't have enough. There's 24 hours in a day, and I need 7 hours of sleep, and I have work, I have school, I have competing, and competing. Like if I show you my schedule here, I can send you a picture in a second of the schedule I just made for myself for competing. It literally takes up 8 to 10 hours of my day in order for me because people when they go into competing in esports, a lot of people look at it as, oh, I want to compete, I want to be this, I want to be that, but they don't look at like the work you actually have to like you actually have to do. Like it takes, it's grueling. Like you won't enjoy all of what you do in esports, especially if you're trying to compete. Like competing is hard. Anybody that tells you, oh, it's easy or yeah, I'm just really good. They're not at the level that you're wanting to get to. At least for me, personally speaking. Like when I look at competing, I'm wanting to be like tier one, right? In order to be
right.
tier one, you have to act like a professional. In order to act like a professional, you have to treat it like a job. And but I still have so much passion for the game and like competing and stuff like that. But you do have to take certain you have to do certain things to level your play up as fast as possible, as consistently as possible, right? Because you can't be someone that like improves vastly in like 2 weeks and then just chills for like another week or two. Like that's I'm sorry, that's just not going to get you anywhere because you're gonna get ahead of people and then they're gonna catch up. And then you know what I mean? It's just like kind of that weird thing, you know? If you're trying to compete, you need to be consistently improving. I mean, you look at any like professional top athlete, the reason that they're like any like let's say like top athlete, like number ones and twos, like MJ, Kobe Bryant, like people like that, if they're always at the top of their game and they're never settling, they're always consistently working hard, right? And they're always trying to consistently improve themselves, not just working hard, but improving themselves, right? In some aspects, even if it's like a 1%, if they can make a 1% difference in their game by the end of the year, that's like fantastic, right? And so if you're going to competing, that's kind of the mindset you have to have is to constantly improve. In order to do that, in my opinion, you have to have some sort of regimen or schedule that you're working on to be doing that, right? And doing that properly.
Well, and I think too, you bring up a very interesting point. I think too, it also prevents things from stagnating
Yeah.
from a a player's standpoint because there's a lot of players I feel, and we saw this in Overwatch when the meta is goats for so long, they get bored, they want to move on.
Yeah.
When the metas don't shift and when players are forced to stagnate their play style, it becomes very repetitive, very boring. They want to move on. Um, and so I think that's healthy, not just from a realistic and professionalism standpoint, but I think it's healthy also too because it keeps younger people. I mean, most of the pro players are younger. Most of the contenders players, Open Division and Overwatch. Most of the I don't know if there's a contenders equivalent in Valorant or anything of. Um, but I guess we could just say the tier 3 to 1 scene.
Yeah, no, that's it's the same thing in the Valorant. It's tier three, tier two, tier one. It's
Oh,
not as like it's not like contenders, but there's specific tiers. Yeah,
okay.
from my
Uh,
understanding, I just started competing like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So
and
yeah,
we'll get,
I'm still learning a lot with Valorant how they have that all organized. Like scrims is even weird for me. Like for example, like you know in Overwatch, did I ever tell you how like blocks are set up in Overwatch? Like they do like 2 hour blocks, like
mm-mm.
from 6 to 10 EST. So it's like 2 hour blocks, and so those set time blocks is when you scrim. For Valorant, it's like, dude, some people are like, yo, we're doing 8:30 EST. Sometimes they're like, yo, you want to do it one at like 1 p.m. I'm like, what? It's like random things, and then they do like only one map for a scrim, and like it's just weird. It's really weird. But I digress. Sorry, continue. What are you saying?
No, no, you're fine. You're fine. And I definitely want to ask you about how things kind of transition from Overwatch to Valorant. With is there any um, things that have carried over? But yeah, I like that. I always like that aspect about esports that there was that level of professionalism, and I guess in some ways I was blessed that while I am ignorant to the actual work put in from a personal perspective, I had a bunch of friends that were trying to put in that work, so they always kind of told me how it was, between you and Primo
Yeah.
and a bunch of others. Um, with Overwatch, let's kind of start with your history a little bit about the teams that you were on, because
Oh
it's
man.
it's come out that I keep running into people that were on teams with you.
Dude.
So,
I mean, I competed 4 to 5 years, so it's like, here I'm bringing up my resume right now. One sec. Sorry.
oh,
I
you're
literally
fine.
have a esports resume of teams I played on, bro. It's whack. So I originally competed in 2018. I guess it's like the first team that was like, I guess it was like a legit team, which was Voltic Esports, and that one eventually turned into Square One or whatever, and they competed in Tier Two and shit like that. But that was like my first experience where like honestly my toxicity was an issue on the team, huge issue on the team. I was also trying to be like, I've always been kind of someone that likes to take lead and likes to take charge
Hmm.
because I don't like things being out of my control at all. It's a big issue of mine. So I try to make sure that what I can control is like affected positively, but I affected that team negatively by the way I spoke to my teammates, some of the decisions I made, some decisions I made with the team, even though they will say that it was just me. That is BS on some things, but I digress. I learned so much from just that first team, man. Like I mean, for example, like you there's a difference between CS. Sometimes it is just business, but there is a certain level of like compassion you have to show to your teammates, like meaning like if you're gonna cut a player, you don't do it like the last day. Like that was literally we did that. I think it was before finals. We cut. I think it was Sola or something. I think it was Sola on Voltic or something. We cut him like the last day, and we're replacing with another off tank because he wasn't competing up to the level that we wanted. Um, and that was a decision that I made with the team, and I felt really bad about. And I was like, fuck. But I was like, we have to do it, right? We want to win, right? We're wanting to win. We're not wanting to just compete in this. We're wanting to win because we made open finals. Um, and so we made that cut, and then like I remember like 30 minutes later, all of a sudden, I forget. I think it was Sola, or I don't know if it was Sola, but the off tank player that we originally had came into the call and was like crying and like said "fuck you" and blah blah blah. It was just going off on a tangent on me, and I was like, "What?" And then he leaves, and then the whole team that was in call was like, "Wow, Yankee, you really shouldn't have done that." And I was like, "You motherfuckers, we literally just talked, and I asked you guys, I'm like, are we making this move? Are we gonna do this?" I said it feels shitty, but if you guys are wanting to do it, I'm down to do it. You know what I mean? And I was like, I'll take the blunt end. I don't mind it, but I won't take all of the responsibility of that. You know what I mean? Because what eventually happened is that came out that I did that type of stuff, and people looked at me as not only like a toxic player, but someone that's a shitty person. And that's just not what it was at all. That's not who I am at all. That was something that, as a group, we made the decision to do that. Right?
Hmm.
Future, I would just play it out and take the L. Right? Learn from it. You know what I mean? That way, I'm not hurting my reputation, but I'm at least still like pushing forward my career. Right? Because shit like that's gonna happen. You're gonna lose games, but we were trying to prevent that from happening. Um, and so then I went to Project Smile, which that was like the first time where I played with legit good players, like some that were tier one, X tier one, some tier two. Um, like for example, I played with why am I forgetting his name? He plays Apex now. Him and you we're mutual friends with him.
Primo?
Oh, Primo. I played with Primo. It was Primo. Primo. It was in Team Smile. Yeah, it was Team Smile. Why was I forgetting his name? But I played with Primo. I played with Sugar. I played with Hippie by Day. Um, Sugar was like really fucking insane. Sugar was actually the player when he joined the team. It was so weird to me because I had always watched him. I had always watched his VODs. And to have him on my team and like to have his experience and like to learn from him about like hit scan and for him to even appreciate my play of the way I played the game was like, dude, it was the weirdest feeling in the world. It was just awesome. It was like the first time where I was like, damn, someone like appreciates what I'm trying to do, right? And they could see that vision. And like Primo was like also like X tier one, played for Renegades. Hippie by Day was just Sugar's friend, I think. Then there was two others. I don't remember the other supports. But yeah, it was the first time where I was on a stacked team. I was on a stacked team for that roster for Open Division. And so we ended up placing top 16 and we went like 9-1, but we didn't make trials. And so basically this whole thing went around in like Open Division in the community that Yankee Wolf was what was holding them back. You know what I mean? And so basically I got that stigma of I was what holding that stacked team back when in reality it was there's a conglomerate of things that were happening within the team that honestly I didn't have a lot of effect on. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna toss blame or shit around. I could have done things better. I could have played better, etc. So I definitely could have played better. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. But it didn't come down to just me. You know what I mean? But that ended up kind of messing up my already uh not so great profile as a
Dwindling.
player. Yeah. So yeah, having that on me now of not only is he a shitty person, kind of toxic, now he's what's holding the team back. So that was Project Smile, and then Hybrid Esports is the team that basically after Project Smile, nobody wanted to team with me. Nobody would even touch me. It was the worst feeling because I had played up to a specific level and I was screaming at a good level, and then all of a sudden nobody wanted me. I didn't know why. Nobody was honest with me. Nobody was fucking honest. The only people that were honest with me were like some of my close friends that did get some info, and even some of them now. Like I remember talking to one of them was like, "Oh yeah, people just didn't want to team with you for X reasons." I'm like, "Tell me then. Tell me then." Because like I'm a person that like if something's like affecting us I'm trying to do, I will fix it. But if people aren't honest with me about something, that how is one to fix that issue, right? It's a fundamental flaw. It's a fundamental mistake from anybody that's doing that. If they're just trying to like not hurt your feelings, like bro, at the end of the day, like we all are working to the same goal, right? So, anyways, but Hybrid Esports. So yeah, basically nobody wanted to touch me, and so I had to go in and literally I picked up no names, fucking no names. Like none of these players had done anything in Overwatch at all, like at all. I literally picked up a bunch of fucking misfits, and I was like, yeah, you're good, you're decent, like you're all right, you're kind of meh, but we can make you better, etc., etc., right? And so I literally I picked these players out, and I was like, fuck. Because dude, imagine playing at a specific level and then nobody wanting to touch you, and now I'm having to drop down a level to then try to compete back up to that same level. And so now I'm having to work with these players individually as a player coach to help them move to the same goal. And this is around when Ghost started becoming a thing. And so thankfully I was friends with like very good coaches like Curry Shot, who eventually like coached or was a strategic coach recently for Glads of like 2020 or so last year, or even now, I don't know. I haven't kept up with him too much. But I was very good friends with him. He was like an upcoming coach, and he was helping me basically with that team work these players into what we needed, like into what they needed to do, and like learning the fundamentals and like basically like teaching them how the game works, right? Getting all the things done because basically they're a bunch of ladder rats or had some experience, but it wasn't good. Um, and so I was a player coach, and I was really hard on them, bro. Like uh, like I was pretty fucking brutal. I'll be honest. I was pretty. I don't think they liked me, and by I don't think they liked me. They did not like me, but they got fucking better, and that's to me till this day. I'm happy that I did that because it got us to where we needed to. We started beating teams that were like those people players are dog shit. They were literally trash talking us, and then we started beating them, and it's like, hey, my work it's working. I'm doing something, right? I'm doing something that's working, right? And so I just kept at it. But what ended up happening on that team that became the downfall of it was there was one scrim because I literally did a VOD review with Curry Shot the day before. We were going over VODs, and our main tank was making the same mistake over and over and over on the same exact portion of the map on the same flaw. And so what happened in the scrim that basically killed that fucking team was there's this, after that VOD review we had a scrim, and I saw him make the same mistake, and I was like, hey dude, like you cannot make that same fucking mistake, man. Like I literally talked to you about it before. I'm seeing it again. I'm like, you are you are hindering us right now with this mistake. Like you need to fix it because within goats, it's if you lose first fight off of something like that, you most likely get rolled all the way to third, or you lose the fucking map. Right? It's not always, but it makes it a lot more difficult to come back and win. And so I was telling him this mistake, and he's like, okay, 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 I'm so sorry, blah blah blah. And so then we replay that round, right? Like so we replay that we play out the map basically. So we basically get to defend in the same exact spot at the first hold, and he made the same exact fucking mistake. And Kershaw told me to be brutal with him. He told me to be like, you can't let these types of mistakes happen more than twice. And so basically, I let on him. I let it out on him, bro. I was like, dude, you are fucking stupid. You cannot make that stupid mistake every fucking time. You can't do it. You can't do it. I'm like, you're trying to be a professional fucking player, and you're doing that same exact mistake. How? How do you expect to make it to the next level if you aren't making or if you aren't fixing these types of mistakes? And that is pretty much how I laid it out to him. And then immediately after that scrim, he leaves Discord, and I didn't think much of it at the time, but I noticed like there's a certain like mood in the team that like it was quiet, and I didn't really think about it. And then later that night, my manager messaged me and goes, "Hey, our main tank has said like school's coming up, blah blah blah." Basically, he made up some BS thing of basically why he couldn't play. And I was like, "There's no shot," because we were literally competing with some of like the better teams. Like I would say we were gonna probably make trials. Like we were playing pretty damn good. We were very likely to make trials, and so basically like last second we're having to look for a main tank for the upcoming OD like finals or whatever, and now we're like in a shit spot because goats main tank. He was also the one that was IGLing quite a bit or like calling the pacing or whatever. So yeah, we got fucked over on that, and so we ended in hybrid esports. We ended up top 32, didn't even make it playoffs, to top 16, which was that that fucked me up pretty good because honestly it was like I started the team with nothing. I got the team to a point where we were destined to at least probably make top, like at least do very well in playoffs and then probably trials, and then all of a sudden one I wouldn't even say it's a mistake on my end because at the end of the day, it was what was working for the team, and I needed to continue to do it to push us forward. So I kept doing it, and then somebody just was like, "I can't handle it anymore." You know what I mean? And so that person ended up quitting. I don't blame him for it. I mean, I was hard. I was really, really hard on him. So, but that's kind of what happened with that team. And so that hybrid esports basically became later on Inferno. We eventually rebranded. We picked up a new main tank and stuff like that. And so in Inferno, that team we then I think we also then picked up SK, which you know SK. She was a very very good player back in the
Hmm.
day, and so we
Support, right?
continued. Yeah, yeah, Lucio. She was the best Lucio in tier two, and like was gonna be very good in tier one. She was phenomenal. She was extremely smart. She was extremely like good mechanic. Like her mechanics on Lucio, bro, fucking insane. Like when I say like fucking insane, like those montages, like you see those montages, dude, she would do that shit in fucking scrims. Like, okay, okay, imagine a player that you have to rein back on a fucking support. That you have to go, hey, yo, that's a great play, good one, but like when we play better teams, don't do that shit because you'll probably die. You know what I mean? But she was owning everyone. It was crazy. And so, but she was like someone that I looked at that like was really intelligent and worked smarter, not harder. Like she didn't put in as much hours like as for me, for example, but she worked smarter in terms of like bettering her play and stuff like that, which I think is a better way of looking at esports in general. Like that's something that I learned from her. Um, because she improved significantly. And we were also still working a bit with Curry shot and stuff like that. And even at that point, I was so dedicated to improving that I reached out to like the best Zarya at the time for EU, which I reached out to hardest, and I was asking him, like, yo man, like here's my gameplay, like can you look at it? And I need some like pointers and some things that you can give me to kind of elevate my game. And so like basically everyone on the team was trying to do that shit, right? We're all trying to get better. It was awesome. Like I didn't really have to push anyone. Everyone was kind of moving in the same direction. And at that point too, I also our VOD recorder from Hybrid, I was talking to him. I was like, "Hey man, you're a really intelligent guy." His name was Dancing Mad. I was like, "You're really intelligent." I'm like, "Me and you have sat here every night and we've watched VODs for hours and hours on end, and we have the same ideas." I'm like, "Would you be interested in coaching?" Um, and he's like, I'm not sure, man." Because I don't know if I want to do that. I'm like, "Dude, I need your help on this. Like, I can't be a player coach again. I can't make that same mistake." Because a player coach, man, like it's hard because as a player and like slash player coach, you don't see like the issue with it if you've never done it before. Of yeah, you're just building players up, but you're also like focusing on yourself. But the issue with it was I was also the authoritarian for that team, right? And so they kind of you separate yourself from the team, which is not good. You don't want that, right? You want to have that same chemistry. You want to be on the same level playing field. You want everyone to be on the same page, right? And so basically I told him like I can't do that again. I need a coach. I'm like you're the closest thing that has the same ideas, same fundamentals in mind of how we like the game to function, right? How we want to play the game. And I was like, I need you to do this for me if you can. And he goes, all right, I'll do it. And he goes, I'll try it. And we'll see how it goes. And bro, I have never worked like with someone that worked that hard. He worked harder than I did. And that's saying like that is legitimately saying something if you know who I am. He him and I watched VODs like for 6 to 8 hours, I would say, about like a per day, like when we could. Like I would stay up late nights, late fucking nights with him. We would watch I would say I watched more to 4 to 6. He would watch 6 to 8, I would say, more accurately. Um, and dude, he not only like improved us as a team, but like as a coach, he got better and better and better. And one of my favorite things was I have a lot of the coaching experience, not only in like esports, but also in actual sports. I coached in tennis, I coached in basketball. I I also coached in taekwondo at a young age. I learned from one of the best coaches, which was my mom. She coached the women's team for World Games. So I learned a lot from her from Taekwondo. Yeah, I coached in basketball as well from some of my coaches and tennis. And so a lot of the things that I learned, I like he would ask me questions about like certain coaching philosophies or like coaching, like the way he delivered information basically. And so I helped him a lot in that aspect. But he would always ask me questions if he had any, right? And that was awesome to see that and to see him like blossom in such a great coach was insane. Because what ended up happening was he basically became our Curry shot, or he turned into like what I was for hybrid, what we needed for Inferno. Like he led us on the same path and shit like that. There's some mistakes that he made, but honestly, like he did amazing for his first job coaching, like fucking phenomenal. And his work ethic is what really led him, like his intelligence and his work ethic, like hand in hand, made him such a great coach for Inferno. And basically, but at the end of Inferno, what happened with that team was we ended up we were very very good at the fundamentals of goats v goats, but whenever we played teams that were do a hybrid of the comp or just not run goats, we were kind of lost in all honesty. We beat the better goats teams, but we lost to the shitter teams that ran like stupid stuff basically, which is unfortunate, you know what I mean? Because we just didn't have the adaptability because we didn't have the experience. It's the same team that was from hybrid that went into Inferno, so they didn't have that team experience of like adapting and stuff like that throughout like different compositions, right? They had only really worked within goats because that's where we started in hybrid was goats. So so we lost like a team and a team early on in OD. We lost like two. We had two losses, and so basically we were out of playoffs. But the meme team, one of the players on my team was friends with one of the other guys, and the meme team didn't really care about their spot in OD, and they're like, "Hey guys, we know that was kind of a fluke, or I wouldn't say fluke, but we know you guys worked really really hard for this, and we honestly don't care. So we're gonna give you our spot for OD, and you guys can compete in our place." And so basically, we had to go under. I think it was dark mode. I think we literally had to go under the name dark mode and play underneath that brand for a little bit, or they might have changed it to Inferno. But we took their spot and we competed, and we ended up placing fifth through sixth, and we were we dude, the losses we had were so tragic. I look back and I was like, man, because it was sick because I owned some of the teams that were shit talking me as a player. Like I remember there was a guy named Romanov, I think. He's like, "You're such a shit Zarya." Like I would hear these things and stuff like that. Bro, my favorite thing in Overwatch ever competing was owning that motherfucker, bro. I owned him, bro. I put that kid in the fucking dirt when we played. Like that was the one time where my competitive like that like 16-year-old that would shit talk, bro, that guy came out, man. During that, dude, you if you heard me in comments like screaming like fuck that guy, fucking better, you know what I mean? Just loud, bro. Just fucking loud and livid, bro. But that was like the one time, but yeah, that came out again. But anyways, I digress. We ended up placing fifth or sixth. We lost to fucking
I just want to put that. No, I've changed as a person, but that dude.
dude. No, I'm still hyper competitive, but I won't ever
No,
say
I
certain
get you.
things like like I
Yeah,
used to say some bad shit.
yeah.
Not like slurs or anything like that, but bad shit. And so yeah, so basically then we ended up placing fifth or sixth. We lost to a very good team, but the way we lost is just heartbreaking, bro. Like, cause what ended up happening was we were beating them in the goats v goats, and so you know what they did? They put Bushio on Widowmaker. They're like, yo, we're not gonna win the fucking goats, cause it's obvious they're just better. Like they're better at goats, and so they threw fucking Bushio on Widowmaker, and like, yo, try to pop off for us. And bro, on God, he owned. He just owned. He did. He shit on us, cause we like not, like we I made mistakes. Everyone made mistakes on the team, and it was just obvious that as soon as it wasn't like a goats v goats mirror, we were like we panicked. We didn't know what to do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up losing in that series. But man, that was such a good run, man. That was such a good run. I learned so much from that, as well as like how to build a team, how to work with a coach. You know what I mean? And what a coach is in tier three. Like a good coach in tier three is someone that is a very hard worker and is intelligent, but is always constantly working to improve themselves. They aren't there yet, but they're working on it. It's tier three. It's development for players and coaches, right? So I learned a lot from that team. And then after that, I took a break. I retired. I started streaming, and then I played Valorant for a little bit in beta. I didn't really like the game. The game was bad. And then I came back and I competed with the team that called Last Minute. I played with Berserky. I played with Jason. I played with Shaq. I played with Sam. And I played with oh man, like yeah, and like I think that's everyone. I hope I didn't forget anyone. And then the coach was Dolith, and then the manager. Oh my God, why am I forgetting your name, dude? No, 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 no. This is embarrassing. Shape. Okay, Shape. I don't know why I was losing your name for a second. Because I was thinking Sape, and I was like, no, that's not right. Sape, that's not right. Shape, it's Shape. Um,
You will live on in his memory.
it's Shape. She was a phenomenal manager. Dolph was a really really good coach. Um, there's some things that I think in his coaching that weren't good, but I had to look at it back afterward because I didn't see him. But yeah, I worked with that team. That team was probably one of my favorite teams to work with because everyone was legitimately good, and that it wasn't like the hybrid Inferno, like it wasn't the hybrid thing where like I picked
Right.
up no names or some shit. It was more of like I think I joined them. I think this is the first time I joined a team. I didn't build a team. This was like the first one, I'm pretty sure. And because I was like, "Oh, man, I don't want to do that shit no more. I'm like, I just want to try out for a team and just take it easy and just like ride the fucking wave. You know what I mean? Because I wanted to compete, but I wasn't all too committed to like competing again. So I played with them, and basically all the things that I learned from Voltic all the way up to Inferno is kind of like I put that all towards that team eventually. Because then my work ethic started picking up again. I started to like get that like I had a little bit of a fire in me of like I wanted to compete in that game, but it wasn't like really there. But then like I got to know Shaq and I got to know Jason more, And dude, I wanted to win for those guys so fucking bad. I don't think you understand. Wanting to win for yourself is a different feeling because it's like it feels almost selfish at times. But when you're wanting to win for your teammates, that's a different feeling, bro. That's a different kind of thing that will like kick your ass and like make you get up and like do that extra rep, so to say. You know what I mean? So like wanting to win for those guys was like a different motivation factor and something that like I think carrying on to like Valorant, I'm gonna try to do more of is like trying to win for others and not just for myself. Because again, like when you're trying to win for yourself, sometimes you'll be like, oh, it's okay, take a little bit, you know what I mean? But like when you're working for others, man, I think same goes for anybody. It's like you'll take better care of your friends and your close friends than you will of yourself, which is kind of honestly, it's kind of sad when you think about it, but the mentality carries in competing, in my opinion. So for that team, that my mentality changed. But all the things that I learned, I started trying to teach those guys of like, hey man, like you can't tilt. Hey man, you need to try to like work on this. You know what I mean? I was never trying to be aggressive. I was always, and every time I like gave them any sort of feedback, I was like, hey, like I hope that didn't come off toxic in any way. If it did, I'm apologize. But I want you to understand the information I'm giving you of why I'm trying to help you, right? Because I told them all, I'm like, I'm going to get you guys. I want you guys to be on the same page that I am, and I want us to go move towards that same goal, right? And so I think that was like the one team where I did the best in that. That I wasn't toxic. I was very constructive. I didn't overstep and stuff like that. I think I did maybe in some places, but I mean, you live and you learn. You kind of feel out the team, right? And so I did that with the team, and I think my favorite thing about that team was probably Jason and Shaq. Jason, like they're my friends, so I'm a little bit biased, but I the reason I became friends with them is because I appreciated who they are as people and the way they like competed and the way they carried themselves, you know? Like for example, I remember Jason when we were first scrimming, bro. He was good, but bro, his mental was bad. His mental was really bad. He'll say it himself. His mental was bad. And so I remember I was doing a VOD review and I was watching. I'm like, dude, he's just making mistakes as he's tilting. I'm like, fuck, like this is bad. Because I do the same shit. I do. I mean, I still do in like ladder and stuff. But like, you can't do that in team play. And so I was talking to I don't remember who it was. I think it was Dolith. Yeah, I was talking to Dolith and I was like, dude, I feel so bad. And he goes like, why? I'm like, dude, I literally see what I was doing at 17 and 18, where I'm tilting and losing my mind in scrims and playing like shit because of it. I'm seeing him do the same exact thing. I'm like, dude, I feel so sympathetic. I feel bad. Like I need to have a talk with him, like a down heart, you know what I mean? Of like, you can't do that type of shit. So basically, I was like, so that night I called him up. I'm like, hey man, like, hey Jason, what's up? And he's like, hey dude, how's it going? You know, and he could tell that something was a little bit up. And I was like, hey, like, I just want to have a heart to heart with you. So basically, I just told him like all the experiences of that I had, and I said, you're making the same exact mistakes I am right now. And after I had that conversation with him, that like heart to heart, bro, I've never seen anybody fix their mental so quickly, like legitimately. Like that's a hard fucking thing. It took me like 2 years. For him, I saw the next thing like 2 or 3 days after. You know what I mean? And there's still some like some issues here and there of his mental, but it was like, bro, it was substantially improved. And with Shaq specifically, that was like the first player that I met that was like raw mechanics and intelligent, but didn't have the experience. It was like the weirdest thing. It was kind of like the thing that I feel like I have in Valorant right now, where it's like I have like a very good understanding of the game, but I don't have experience. But I also have like the mechanics to back it up now. You know? So it was a weird little thing with Shaq, but like it was all my favorite thing with Shaq was like kind of getting to know him and like honestly, he was like the duo on my team. Like I was the tracer, he was the Zen. Have you seen the memes and stuff like that of him and I
Oh yeah, I
literally
saw the
in
Volskaya.
scrims? Yeah, literally in scrims, we would literally flank and just own teams. It was the biggest fucking meme because it was a legitimate strategy of ours. Was me and Shaq are mechanically good enough to just own people. You take a 2v1, if you're Zen and Tracer try to fight back, Shaq is too fucking good, bro. On God. Shaq, if I'm a little bit off, Shaq is owning that tracer. I'm playing smart enough to where I don't die, I don't feed, but I enable him to do that and I push him farther forward, right? Or vice versa. He's if I'm playing really well, even he's not that great. If as long as he has harmony on me and he has Discord on the right people, bro, we're just fucking, bro. It's crazy. It was so fun. But that was my favorite thing with him because we got that was like the first time in Overwatch where I had like a duo where like I could really I relied on him in scrims and in matches to really like pop off for me, right? And I needed that trust in him as a teammate to like own with me, right? It was kind of like it kind of reminded me of like fuck, I'm trying to think of some people like that and like sports in general. I mean, I can think of some basketball players, but it was just sick. It was like the first time where I'd had that. I was like, that is a sick relationship. I want in like my next future teams or in Valorant, right?
I uh
So
I actually want to get to something. I need to grab a
yeah,
water because I'm wearing a bunny suit without air
yeah, yeah.
conditioning. Um, but I want to leave you with this question to ponder on and answer if you want to. I'll go grab another water.
Sure.
What is the one thing and it might be multiple things, but the one major thing, younger you, where you are now, we'll get to the Valorant scene here, but what would you tell yourself, what major piece of information would you give to yourself that you've learned? Your younger
I'll,
self,
I'll
I
wait.
should say.
I'll wait till you get back, but
Okay.
I definitely have some
Oh,
ideas.
okay. I will be right back, everybody. Oh, sorry. I will be right back.
How are you guys doing? KBM. I just opened up chat. I haven't seen chat at all this entire thing because I was really like focused on like talking. How are you guys? I can't believe KBM's here. On God, I did not expect that. What's up, my guy? What's up, Sam? Say, oh, I can see some of past what some people send past. Fuck. How do I? Great interview so far. I appreciate it. Thanks. I feel like I've been talking a lot, but it's like the first time like someone's like actually asking about like some of the things that I haven't. Dude, I don't get to talk about this type of shit because I'm a nobody. But it's like, okay, talk about it on like on podcasts, which is cool.
Okay. I am back. I just said screw it and I grabbed the jug.
You
Um,
grab the jug easy, guys.
no, look. So,
All right, I'm closing chat again.
oh, you're fine. You're fine. Oh, were you reading the chat?
Yeah, yeah. I was saying hi. I was like seeing what's up while you were going. It's like, hi guys.
That's okay. Okay, so back to the question.
Hmm.
What?
Advice to younger self,
Yeah, yeah,
basically.
yeah. If you were to tell your younger self, which is kind of what's so funny to think about. I'm not even being patronizing when I say that, but it is. I think people underestimate too, and this brings up another point. Whenever you are, you know, a professional athlete, and gamers, in these circumstances are professional athletes, or they're aspiring to be professional athletes.
Mm.
It's interesting to think about that in a lot of ways. You do have to grow up more quickly
Fast.
than the normal because especially with and you and
Public
I have
eye.
talked about this off camera, but we don't have to necessarily go into a one of our longer conversations about it, but especially with the culture that seems to be obsessed with, let's take what somebody says at 14, bring that
Yeah.
into when they're 20, and
Mm.
take the I mean, we can be fair. It might have been some stupid, crap that they said, but let's
Yeah.
take it and let's, use it to go against their career the rest of their lives. It's interesting that you have to take a very professional stand with how you handle everything, especially when there's still a stigma of games not being professional.
Mm.
So, I've always appreciated that, and also not gonna lie, sours me a little bit when people are like, "Yeah, dude, I'm 23, I'm done." Like I'm washed up. I'm sitting here at like 31.
Yeah.
Like, y'all can go to hell. Oh, and again, thank you,
My
sincere.
bad.
Oh, you're fine. Thank
S-
you again,
My sister
sincere.
was asking me about calzone.
Paul, get a calzone.
I was like, sure. But
Um, yeah, but I do respect that, and I think that that's something that a lot of people don't factor in. I think they
yeah,
they expect, um, you know,
16-year-olds to be mature adults. Yeah, that's BS.
and again, I want to clarify. This isn't to excuse some of the abhorrent
Oh
behavior that
yeah.
some people have done,
Oh
even at
yeah.
15 and 16. You
I
should
mean,
have known
I
not to
I
do.
I mean, I
But
told you like I'm like Sinatra before he even joined the league. I mean, he called my friend the slur, really pretty bad slur, off stream and shit. Like even though he's 16, like dude, you don't drop slurs like that, especially when you're going to something like the public eye like that. But anyways, I digress. I would say like for me, I guess my biggest advice to myself, if I was to give it, which I don't have any regrets about it. I mean, I'm a very much of a person about like living and learning and like bettering myself as much as I can possible. There's only so much you can do. Um, but I guess the biggest thing was like I wouldn't say don't be toxic. I wouldn't say like tone it down. I wouldn't say any of that type of stuff because you have to really like you have to experience it to understand it. Why, right? Because somebody can tell you don't be toxic, and you're like you take it at face value, like yeah, that makes sense, right? But you until you're genuine, like unless you're like at least from my experience, at least I heard that stuff when I moved from CS to Overwatch, like yo, you're a little bit toxic, like cool it down. I mean, for my friends, but they never really understood. I never really understood why. I just like knew that they just didn't like the toxicity as much. I was like, sure. So I did tone it down. It was still really bad. But I guess like,
Well, and
man,
I want to add something to that as well, if you don't mind. I think a lot
yeah,
of people, they don't realize that a toxic mindset, it doesn't just, yes, you should not want to do it because it hurts other people. Like that should be a big motivator to why you don't want to say something like that. But even going aside from that, that mental to where you go from 0 to 100 on how you want to speak to somebody is not healthy for you either.
yeah,
It's very
no,
detrimental
100%.
to your mindset. When if for instance somebody cuts you off in traffic, the first thing you want to do is flip them off. Like that
Yeah,
should because I mean one mistakes happen and two what's it going to solve?
yeah.
Now
I think.
I just
Oh
want
no,
to
sorry.
I just want to add that
Yeah,
this is coming from somebody that is definitely smart off to somebody that's cut him in traffic
yeah,
before. I definitely got
yeah,
cut off one time by somebody. Um, we both arrived at the red light at the same time. They just cut me off to get into the lane next to me or whatever. And I definitely rolled down my window and motioned for them to roll down their window, and they did. I said, "Congrats on beating me to the light." So, don't do that. Don't do that. I don't recommend that.
So I guess the one advice I would have is like, I always I'm trying to think because there's so much that I've learned. It's not like one specific thing. It's like a shit ton of lessons that I've learned
Well,
like
let me help.
throughout the
Let
years.
me help narrow it down then, maybe. So,
Okay.
if you were to give yourself one piece of advice in terms of relationships and and your interpersonal communications
Mm.
with people, what was the biggest takeaway that you got from a lot of the
Yeah,
stuff?
I had a mentality change actually, which was after something I learned, which was the information that you can give people into your players or like your teammates can be good information, but if it's presented in a way that's offensive or pisses them off or basically what ends up happening is instead of them receiving that feedback and them using it to better themselves, they forget about the feedback altogether and they just go and they're more focused on, wow, he was just a fucking asshole.
Right.
Whoa. You know what I mean? So like I guess being blunt, being blunt is okay as long as it's not as long as it's not as long as it's not you don't want to lose the information the way you carry a message, I guess is the best way to word it.
And we talked about this before. Again, we stuff we've talked about off stream. For those of you who might not know, um, and again, I was about to call him Yankee, but I mean, to me, there isn't the bad connotation with it, so I don't mind calling you that. But out of respect for you trying to move forward in the name change and stuff. So Devin and I mean, we've known each other now for probably 2 years. Um,
Whoa, shit. I didn't even realize that.
well,
Uh,
maybe actually longer, because I mean, I definitely remember you playing with Primo, so maybe
yeah.
even knew of each other, I should say. But definitely
Mm.
knew each other for yeah 2 years, I would say. Um, well, actually, hit the exclamation point followage.
Who, me?
Yeah
Let me see. Let
in the chat.
me open up your
It's
stream.
definitely over a year.
Yeah.
There's no question.
I've known
Um,
Hero since like my first team. It's been like so I've known him like 5 years. It's
uh,
crazy. It's really crazy. 5 or 6 years now I've known Hero.
so the reason I bring that up is when I keep saying we've talked about stuff off stream. I mean, him and I have
Yeah.
been friends for a while. Um, 1 year, 8 months, 3 weeks. Yeah, and you streamed before I did.
Yeah. So definitely at least 2 years.
Yeah.
About.
So, um, I yeah, I think that's everybody's in college now. I like it.
Yeah, you know what's funny is like our relationship, you've affected me in like a pretty positive way actually. Like I remember okay, so I've said I've been toxic. I'll be honest with like one of the things that I said that it was the last time I was like, damn, I don't want to be that guy. I was like so I've something that bothered me as like a player, like coming up was like when people refer to me as toxic or as a shitty person, like if you get to know me like personally, I am very much not a shitty person. Like I am very much I want people to be happy, blah blah blah. But when it came to like ladder and stuff like that, I was just toxic. I don't know why. I don't know why there's that separation even still. Um, but it bothered me very very much that people had that look on me that I was a shitty person or toxic or stuff like that. I didn't care about the toxic, it was a shitty person. That's the one that really got to me. But I remember I told someone to kill themselves on stream. It was out of me being really fucking mad. And I'd done it once before and you told me, yo, don't do that shit. Like I can't be friends with someone that does that type of shit. I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's really shitty. And then there was one more time I did it, and it was I remember the night because I did it, and immediately I was like, "Fuck!" Like you know when you have that gut, like that thing in your throat where it feels like you're like you can't breathe very well. I said it, and then as soon as I said, it, I was like, "Oh, I regret that immediately." And then I remember ending stream, like I'm like, "Sorry, guys. I need like I messaged him, the messaged the guy I told that to, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Um, totally out of line, blah blah blah." And I remember calling you later that day. I'm like, "Dude, I feel so bad." And you're like, "Yeah, yeah." And basically, you told me like, you told me again. Basically, it was like kind of like your final warning in a way. You're like, "Yo, if you say that shit again, like I'm be real, like I just don't want to be friends with someone like that." I was like, "No, I totally agree," because I didn't want that for myself even, and so that is like I would say the last straw for myself that I remember like being like, I can't say that type of shit anymore, like ever. Like it's just not okay. And so like that was literally like the last time I ever said something that toxic ever. And the reason for it wasn't because like not only for myself because I didn't want people to think that about myself, but I didn't want to like disappoint you. It sounds really weird, but I didn't want to disappoint Yanni, and I was like, I felt so bad because like I was like, he's like someone that's like so positive and like so positive in this community. I'm like, if I'm aiming for that same sort of community, I can't be doing this type of shit. You know what I mean? So that was like, that was like I think that was like the most important moment in our relationship for me personally was learning that lesson honestly throughout the 2 years. Dude, it's been 2 years. I didn't even think about that. It's wild.
Well, I think and it's not even about disappointing me. It's about that I think people have these expectations for themselves, and once they start to sink to a certain level, especially because, and I remember the the first scenario that you're talking about, and I remember both the map it was on and who you were talking to.
I
Um,
don't remember at all. I just remember being
I
really fucking sad and
I
just being
do
like, I can't do that shit again.
I do, and what I'm going to say is, while there is no excuse for it, and there is no, you shouldn't engage in that type of behavior again, because it's not only detrimental to you, it's detrimental to the other person. It's also the fact there's a third, circumstance that kind of bubbles over there, and that's that the person who you said it to is a notorious troll in the community, and to be able to get that type of rise out of you, is what they thrive upon. You starve the troll by not engaging with them. And that's really what it kind of boils down to. I think that a lot of times with self-reflection, and I'd like your thoughts on this as well. I think that we immediately there's a point of depression and anxiety that kind of hits where we're like, oh, okay, I'm a terrible person for saying this. But again, I think it goes back to society where we've all said something stupid. I mean, I remember I've told this story before on stream when I was in first grade. I went to my first grade teacher, and I was having somebody who was picking on me, and we were told to go tell the teacher. So I went and told the teacher, and the teacher said, "Don't come to me with that boring crap. Take care of it yourself." So my next reaction was to go up and punch the dude. Um, and and I got
You
in
did.
trouble.
You handled it, bro. What
Yeah, I did
the?
handle it. I the instructions were go to your teacher. I went to the teacher, and the teacher told me to go handle it. So
He
I,
said, "Go take
so
care of your shit, son."
so
Yeah, you did.
so
Yeah,
I
you did.
I went John Wick, and just But the
Yeah.
thing about it is that I mean that should not have been my first reaction. My first reaction.
Yeah, if you were my kid and you did that, I would have laughed so hard. But man, oh man, imagine. Like that
Uh,
story in itself is so funny. Sorry,
no,
continue,
no, no,
bro.
no, no. Well, it's one of those
Yeah.
things where you know it's there. There was another time where I got into a fight at a pool party because like some kids like kept like they had a super soaker. They kept splashing water in my face and said, "Please don't do that." And then well, one, they kept doing it, and then another one, when I tried to get the water gun away from him so he wouldn't splash water in my eyes, he tried to kick me in the groin, and that just, so then, another fight broke out. So, and but my stepdad at the time, it was trying to remember. Yeah, it was my stepbrother's pool party. So, yeah, so my stepdad at the time, he's like, he told my mom, I found this out later, he said, I gotta punish him out of the principle of the thing, but I really hate to do. He was
That's
like,
funny.
he's like, yeah, that's. I was like, they kind of got what they had coming, but
Yeah.
when we do this moment of self-reflection, there's like this moment of kind of depression, anxiety, but I think once we get past that and we have a moment to really observe what it is we did and why it was wrong, I think that there is a real chance to kind of learn and grow from that. So you've had it happen with yourself, but you also mentioned, you alluded to it happening with other players on your team. What's that like as both a teammate and friend?
What do you mean, like doing it myself, like
No, 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 no,
self-reflection as a
no.
team?
No, watching, you've had your moments of self-reflection, but you've seen other people have theirs on the teams
Hmm.
that you've been with. And you've
Yeah.
had the chance to kind of intervene and talk and say, "Hey, listen, think about more what you're saying." You've been able to share your experiences. What has that been like, watching, again, I don't want to say it's condescendingly, but watching other people kind of grow up as players.
Oh no, it's not condescending at all. It's part of esports. Actually, it's like something that you experience a lot as a player. I think, unless you're just, no offense, just like a shitty person or you don't care, then you're just not growing up, which is not how that works. Um, but it's really weird because I for the one that I can only the one that first comes to mind is always Jason, because I remember, like I told you, I had that conversation with him and I had that heart to heart and I just like broke down like what happened to me like throughout my career of why I had the same exact issue. I had made the same exact mistakes. Like, bro, like you cannot do that type of shit. I'm like, you're just like, I told him like I want you to succeed, you know what I mean? But you're doing the same exact shit that's gonna make you fail, you know? And I think I know he knew it, but I don't think he'd ever had someone experience what he experienced or something similar to that. And so to see him then take that information, have that heart to heart, because like I told you, it's like someone can tell you don't be toxic, right? And you can be like, it makes sense, and then you sort of do it, but you don't really like internalize it. You don't really like, it doesn't like, I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't really ingrain itself in you, right? It doesn't become like a core fundamental of like, I need to change this, right? It doesn't bother you to the core. For Jason, I saw the same exact thing that I saw, where it was like he noticed it and dude, it shook him. Like it bothered him so badly. Because then from then on, like anytime he got tilted or stuff like that, instead of like, because he got tilted a couple times after that, but it was just. It was genuine. He was tilted for just reasons, but he got like very, very upset that he got tilted, and he was like, "I'm so sorry, blah blah blah. Like, won't happen again." I'm like, dude, like I understand. It's a learning process. It took me like multiple years to fix that type of shit. I mean, I grew up with it for. I mean, I went through COD and CS:GO. Those are like some of the two most toxic communities you can deal with, and that's where I'm from. So like dealing with like a decade worth of toxicity isn't something that you just fix overnight. You know what I mean? I don't know how long he's had to deal with that type of like issue of like getting tilted and stuff like that. But to see him like immediately see that change and for it to kind of click is so weird to me. That's the only way I can describe it. It's awesome. It's fucking phenomenal. It's why I really I'm very um I'm very not appreciative. I'm very inspired. I just it's really really something really cool to see in someone like that. You know what I mean? To see them go through that type of change and genuinely take feedback like that and work on it like within themselves. Because people can take feedback in game and that's easy to shit to fix, but when it's something that's like core part of you, like mental or like you know what I mean, any sort of like aspect of yourself that you is normally part of your personality or even it's hard, man. It takes hard work and it takes like genuine like man, it takes a lot. So like to see him go through something like that and like fix it was amazing. Um, Not fix it perfectly because nobody's perfect, but fix it substantially. I mean, he went from tilting Yanni like a lot, like almost every minute, to like you he wouldn't get tilted. Like he just wasn't tilting, and then it started to bubble up again, but then it just flattened out way more than before, and then it was just like a consistent thing from then. Um, I'm not talking about his ladder, by the way. Ladder, anybody can tilt on ladder. I don't give a fuck. Tilting in team play is a different aspect though, because you're affecting your teammates and you're working with people, right? You're all working to that same goal. And comp, you deal with trolls, you deal with people that don't care. You know what I mean? There's a lot more to it. Do I say it's? I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm just saying him as a player and as a teammate is very different from him as someone on ladder. I would say it's the same with me if you ever see me in Valorant comps or anything like that. But even I'm still trying to get better at it in ladder. But yeah, no, it's weird, bro. It's really sick to see though. It's really, really sick to see. Because I mean, again, it's like you're watching them kind of go through this blossoming moment where it's normally it's very, very beneficial for them as like a person. You know what I mean? Like now when I look at like Jason streams, he's like listen to chill music occasionally. You know what I mean? He's don't get me wrong, he still tilts, but in my opinion, it's just more memesical tilt. But yeah, it's really cool. And then for Shaq, even like I remember having a heart to heart with Shaq about like depression, bro. Like depression, that shit's tough. And him and I having a heart to heart when like how, because for me, so self reflection is like a tool and something that's really important. But for me personally, I had an issue of it. I don't know when it happened, but there was a certain point in my life where self reflection became too much and I focused on it too much to where I didn't live in the moment. And so I became a shell. I don't know how to explain it other than like imagine like you're going through life and you're doing stuff and you're just looking out like from the outside perspective of your
You were
body.
constantly an observer,
Yeah,
not yeah.
always. And so I was always judging what I was doing, the decisions I would make. Like I would make certain decisions, but I wasn't in the moment. And so that was kind of it's kind of like that when I was watching Jason, but in a much more positive manner. You know what I mean? That's the best way I can describe it. Um, but yeah, but with Shaq, it was like we talked about it, and for him, it was more of like he was dealing with certain like things that were bothering him. And for me, I couldn't really relate to that, so not being able to relate to that sucked. But I saw that after our conversation, like again, it was like this weird thing of like he hit a really low, and then now it's like much more level, and it seems to that he's like improved, not as a person, like he was a negative person, but he's like much better place now. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know. It's just sick to see that with a lot of people, especially yeah, especially with your close friends. It's really really sick to see because that's what you want for everyone, right? So
Well,
yeah,
yeah, and I think we have to when it comes to esports. I don't know. Maybe eventually the leagues catch up, but I think there has to be a lot of self-governance from the players and a lot of you know while it's still in its infancy, because it is. I mean,
it is.
I don't care that League of Legends has been around for 15 years at this point, maybe.
No,
Um,
esports is still in its infancy for sure.
yeah. Um, or that CS:GO, LAN parties have been happening for 20 years. Yeah, it's still in its
Yeah,
infancy.
nah, yeah,
Um, so I think that it's one of those things that people have to really take an interest in themselves as players and those around them that they constantly interact with because nobody else is going to do it for you all. And if you truly care about the sport and it's not just a thing for clout or because you think it's an easy meal ticket, which I think is a huge misconception, and you alluded to, that a lot of people don't understand the work involved. Um,
Why pros retire early actually,
yeah,
because they just don't realize it. Same thing as like I mean, streamers like professional streamers, I'm sure they can say the same thing. It's like a completely different work ethic that you need to have in order to maintain that level of play or level of like content, right? So
I would
everyone thinks
s-
it's easy.
I would say your average professional streamer, content creator, however you want to phrase it, I'd be shocked if they didn't put in 60 plus hours a
Yeah,
week.
it's fucking hard. It's
Um,
hard work.
but let's transition now, going into to Valorant. So you mentioned before, kind of tacitly we touched upon it, but you said that you played the beta, didn't like it, and then you came back.
Mm-hmm.
What changed, with the game from not liking it to trying to go pro in it?
So much, bro. Okay, I enjoyed the game for a solid week and a half, the beta. I loved it. I was back in my roots of search and destroy. I loved search and destroy in COD. I loved CS:GO search and destroy. I loved the tac-based shooter and like outplaying people not only with like your aim but like with your brain. Like, oh, dude, that's my shit. Cuz I don't know. It's just competing in general. It's like it's at its core it was a great game to compete in that aspect. But what I didn't like about it was like the maps. The maps are horrible. They were horrible. Like you would play it and it felt like you were doing the same thing over and over and over again. And so I hated the maps and the way they were structured. And like there's too many corners. It was too tight. It felt claustrophobic after an hour. Like I don't have claustrophobia, but God, that game made me feel claustrophobic at times. Um, the characters were fine. I enjoyed the characters for the most part. When they added Raze was stupid. I mean, I scrimmed against really good teams, and like the good teams abused Raze to the fucking max, man. Imagine like imagine Junkrat, like, but like was actually like insane. Okay, imagine that. Like how annoying that shit is, right? It's absurd. Like I remember them comboing slows and nades, and like you just get fucked at like pre-round. Like you take a step and you're dead, or like you're a step and then you're like half HP, and you're like, come on guys, and then they would do it again because you had two nades back then. So the characters for the most part were fine except for Raze early on, but they fixed it. The maps were terrible. Um, the other issue I had with it, I only hit D2 in beta, or like, or whenever like comp came out, I hit D2 right away. But I'll be honest, I'm so stupid for this. By the way, I don't regret it. It's a missed opportunity for me. But when I was playing, I noticed nobody knew how to play the game. It sounds condescending. It really does. But nobody knew how to play the game. Like even the CS:GO players, I scrimmed against like some of the better teams in CS:GO that played ESEA and were semi-pro or pro, I don't know. We smoked them. It was boring. Um, until we got into like a tournament, and then we met a team that knew how to play the game. And normally that would be like for me, I'd be like, oh no, this is where it's exciting, right? But then the team disbanded and shit. And then I was like, I'm gonna go back to Overwatch because I wasn't enjoying the game. But the game, yeah, the maps, the people didn't really know how to play, so it was really boring, and I got annoyed very quickly, which I regret because I was ahead of the curve on how the game functioned and how it should be played. Um, and then the other thing was like, I the reason I quit wasn't because I necessarily didn't enjoy the game as much. It was more of like an opportunity arose within Overwatch to compete at a higher level. And I was like scrimming against tier two teams with um with last minute. Like we were scrimming against good fucking teams, and I was owning. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was like Yankee Wolf owning in Overwatch, like doing things like getting clips and scrims and doing some really cool shit. I was like, I want to experience this because I hadn't really gotten to play at that level all too consistently. I was like, all right, I fucks with this. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play with this a little bit and see how this goes. And then things didn't work out, and it's what it is, and that's why. And then I'm like, at the end of it, I was like, that was a good run. I had a fun time with Overwatch, but now it's time to move back to Valorant. So it wasn't that I didn't enjoy Valorant, although I didn't enjoy the maps and like the way people were playing it wasn't very smart. But it was more of like, honestly, I just had the better opportunity for a minute on Overwatch. But I do regret quit. I not regret. I hate saying that word, but I do wish I would have stuck with it. Just through beta and just continued because when I was playing as well, I was playing in ladders with like I was doing like the ladder system that they had, and I
Hmm.
remember for one of them it was like a bunch of like really good players that are now like tier two or like some of them are tier one. On the ladder, I was like rank two and I wasn't even trying,
Mm.
and I was like I not even like I was just putting I would just go into the lobbies and I would farm, and I was like okay, like this is it. This is all I'm looking forward to. It's just like it was boring to me because like for me, I like to compete against better people, right? So that's part of the reason I quit. So those were like so the maps, the play wasn't very good. Um, and I just had a better opportunity, I would say, in Overwatch at the time. That's why I quit. Not, I didn't enjoy the game as much. So yeah.
Okay. So when you come back to Valorant, okay,
Hmm.
so this had been, I assume if I got the chronology of events right,
Yeah.
Team in Overwatch that you went to disbanded
Yeah.
and you came back to Valorant. Now you're pushing for that. At what point did you realize there might be potential opportunity in Valorant?
I knew when the beta came out that it
Okay.
was my game. I knew a minute as soon as I saw that it was Search and Destroy had essence of Overwatch and CS:GO. I was like, bro, if anybody's ever teed me up a game and said, "Yo, this is your fucking game," I was like, "This is my game." Um, but for me to say I was willing to compete, I wouldn't I didn't say I the thought or like the thought of competing always was in my mind of what that is what I wanted to do, but I needed to get to a certain point of level of play where I'm like, okay, now it is actually achievable, right? So I needed to first in my mind, I needed to hit immortal, right? That's like the first goal of like I need to hit immortal. Then from there I assess, I talk to people that are higher level already, get their opinions of whether or not I should start competing and stuff like that. And so then I just like when I came back, I was plat 2. I was bad again. I had to relearn everything. It was quite annoying, but also with that relearning, I already had experience from the beta a lot more than people really could think. Because, I mean, I was playing the game so much, Yanni. Like, I was playing so much every day on that game. So there's some things that, like, when I was watching VODs, even, I was like, okay, they're still making these mistakes. So I was able to fix those mistakes without some of these bad habits, right? And so yeah, from there I started grinding to hit immortal. Once I hit immortal, I didn't feel like I was still good enough, but I wanted to be consistently immortal. Once I was consistently immortal, I was like, okay, now I can maybe like try to like start competing and stuff. I could potentially try to go pro in it. And so that's where I'm at now is like I've been consistently immortal for a good bit, and so I just started competing 2 or 3 weeks ago, like started trying out for teams and stuff like that. And the reason I was gonna wait till I was radiant, but I talked to Derek, who you know. I talked to Derek and I talked to Shaq, and I was like, hey Derek, like, hey man, I've been consistently immortal for a little bit now, and I'm wondering should I hit Radiant first, or should I just start competing and stuff like that? Because I felt like when I was consistently immortal, I was like low immortal like consistently, and I was playing well overall, but it was felt like I kind of peaked right in my improvement, and so I was like, fuck, what do I need to improve? Because I honestly I hit immortal off of like basic understanding and just mechanics, right? And I wasn't like really indulging in like how to think about the game, how to like decision making, like being smart, like a smart player. And so I asked him, and he goes, "Do you feel like you have the basics?" And I'm like, "Yeah, pretty much." He goes, "Yeah, then go start playing." He goes, like a friend of mine that was D2 started playing, which I don't agree with. If you're not immortal and you're like trying to seriously go pro and you're D2 or like diamond or below immortal at all or not consistently immortal, I think you're wasting your time. To be blunt, I think it was the same thing in Overwatch. It's something that I wish I didn't do, which was start competing when I was in Masters, thinking I was good enough. I wasn't because I was competing against like GM plus players at the time too when I was still Masters and wasn't good enough. But until you're at that level, you don't have the mechanics nor do you have the basics understanding of to actually compete at that level, to actually try to go pro. And so that was basically what Derek told me instead of just like wait till you're radiant. Because then I was like, oh, but I don't want to be a shitter coming into competing. And he goes, dude, everyone's a shitter. And he was blunt with me. He goes, dude, I'll be honest with you. Tier 3 players, if they share shit, I'm gonna be honest, nobody cares. He goes tier 2, tier 1, they're looking at your play for what it is. If they don't care what the like tier 3 shitters say type deal. I was like, okay. And so that's why I started competing the past 2 or 3 weeks, and it's been really fun. It's been really fun. I missed competing with teams and like working with players and like working with my teammates to get them better and as well to improve myself as well. It's been really sick because I've seen substantial improvement since I started playing. Like I think one of the biggest things is like once I started competing, along with some of the feedback that Shaq gave me about mechanics, dude, I've been owning. Like it's been really cool to see this improvement of like where I was stagnating, and then I'm like, and then all of a sudden I just make a huge jump in my play. I'm playing against like good teams and shit. I'm just playing well. I'm like, okay, like I can definitely do this now. And that now, after like playing against those better teams and like playing very well for within like 2 or 3 weeks of competing in Valorant, that is where I would more say I could now, in my mind, I could definitely see myself pursuing this professionally. But up until that point, it's always been like a looming thing of like, yeah, I want to, but can I? I guess is the better way to word it. So
Now,
yeah.
what has kind of carried over from Overwatch to Valorant? In terms of mental, in terms of mechanics,
Everything.
everything?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything. Every single thing that I've learned in Overwatch, I literally sat down before when I wanted to start competing when Derek said, "Yo, like yeah, go compete," and like Shaq gave the go ahead too, was I literally sat down and I wrote down some of the lessons I learned in Overwatch. I was like, I don't want to make the same mistakes. I don't want to tilt in team play. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I wrote them down and I looked at them like, okay, I've learned a lot and I don't want to make those same mistakes. And so basically all the mistakes that I made from Overwatch, I'm trying to make sure I don't repeat because I mean, in my definition of stupidity is making the same mistake twice. You know what I mean? And so I'm trying not to be stupid. I'm not trying to do that. So um yeah, that's kind of what's Overwatch has been helpful to the max. Like every time I've tried out for teams in Valorant, because I'm trying out like at a lower tier, honestly, like a little bit below tier three or some tier three teams. And most of them are like, wow, you have like experience. And I'm like, no, I don't, not in Valorant. But I do have experience in C play, yes. Like in terms of communication, how you work with teams, the professionalism, you know what I mean, stuff like that. So everything's carried over from Overwatch. Overwatch is like I guess my learning game maybe. I'm hoping it is, and this is the one where I pop off in. That would be cool. We'll see. But yeah, everything's carried over.
Have you ever thought of a coaching position?
I can't do it. I
Can't do
can't
it.
do it. No, dude, I like competing. I like literally. Okay, here's an example. I played against some of my Overwatch, like some old Overwatch people the other day in scrims. And when I owned, I was like, you can't get this feeling as a coach. When you own somebody that you really want to own, and you're just like, yeah, I did that. And then like you bag them, you know what I mean? You're like, yeah, nah, you don't get that same feeling from as a coach. I like seeing players improve, and I do like coaching. I'm very good at coaching. Like it's something that I'm very confident in, and like helping people get better. But for me, it's competing, man. Like competing is like a core fundamental of like who I am. Like I had a talk with my dad about it the other day because he was like, "You want to do business like that?" Yeah, right. I'm like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Why do you like business?" I'm like, I like business. Don't get me wrong. It's really fun. I enjoy it. I like there's a lot of things to learn about it, and that's why I enjoy it. And there's like kind of like you could make an argument that there's even like a competing aspect in it, right? Because free market, you're trying to compete against other companies and stuff like that. But it's more of something that it's something that I want to do alongside of competing in esports. I want to try to do it as much as I can, as long as I can, right? Without getting in the way of other things like life. You know what I mean? Because I mean that's something I think a lot of esports players don't really realize that when you're going and you're doing these hours, you're have you seen Kakaguri? Or probably pronouncing it so bad. But have you seen that anime at all?
Mm-mm.
Basically it's about gambling.
Oh yeah.
And
Well,
gambling,
I know
okay.
of it. Yeah, I know of
Okay,
it. They
okay.
go to a school to learn how to.
There's a quote that actually fucked me up a good bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. She said there's gambling is all aspects of life. And like she goes, for example, like sports players, they sacrifice their youth to try to compete in these aspects, but it's not always gonna pan out. And dude, when she said that, I was like, holy shit. I remember in high school, no bullshit. I remember in high school when I was said I want to start competing in Overwatch. I remember sitting down and being like, I'm gonna sacrifice 4 years of my life to really sit down and work on my craft. Dude, esports players, I don't think they realize that when you get to like when you're like 16 or 18, you're gonna if you're serious about it, unless you're like gifted from the start and you're just like you kind of get a up like some kids are like straight up gifted and they're just like they immediately go to tier two, but for a lot of us it's not the case, right? You're gonna have to work for it. You're gonna have to like learn how to work in a team. Like there's a lot to learn, right? And so it's like a huge sacrifice. Wait, what was the question? Sorry, I feel like I'm going. I feel like I'm going in a different place right now. What was the
No,
question?
no, 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 no,
Sorry.
no. Keep
Yeah.
going. Don't worry about the. Don't worry about the.
Okay, but I feel like yeah, but I feel like that's like something that like people just forget to realize is like if you're trying to like go in esports, like you're sacrificing time, man. And time, if you haven't questioned like this gets a little bit dark, but if you haven't questioned mortality or like how your life pans out, it's a serious thing, man. Like esports is like serious if you're in that aspect of like you're gonna put in the time and you're gonna like sacrifice certain things. Like there's certain occasions that I didn't go to because I had competition. I had scrims, you know what I mean? In fact, one of my not a regret, but something that I realized when looking back on my Overwatch career, there's one moment in my Overwatch career where I was competing against some of the tier two players, and they were doing a project for trials or for open or whatever, and they basically got tier one and tier two players, and I so happened to get a voucher from a very good coach, and the coach was like, "You should try this guy out. He doesn't have like tier two experience, but he's good. He has potential." And I went to the tryout and I owned. I owned one of the names that I had studied for years, Yanni, for like 2 years. I won't forget it. And it was like the first time I was like, wow, I can be really good at this game. And then basically the next week tryouts, and then like halfway through the week, I'm supposed to go to Europe. And so my tryout for the next week gets canceled because like the Overwatch or one of the main tanks gets like sick or whatever, right? And so I'm like, oh fuck, and I'm like, when I come back, will there still be a spot for me to try out for? Like, absolutely. And part of the thing was if I didn't go to Europe, I I'll just give you the short aspect. I could have probably been on that team. But because I was gone, they replaced me with someone else. And then that total opportunity, that once in a lifetime opportunity for my esports career, gone. And that team eventually turned into another team that ended up being tier two. Like top tier two, like owning, like really, really owning. And so that's something like, for example, if I made that sacrifice not to go to Europe, which I'm so happy I went to Europe, man. Like my perspective on what I want to do with my life changed like when going to Europe, and like what I value and what's important to me changed with that trip. But at the same time, I also have to deal with the understanding that because I made that choice, I also very likely fucked over my career in Overwatch. Because that was like that opportunity, like when people talk about like that once in life opportunity that like you need to own for that, like you need to be ready for it. That was it, man. I was at my peak. I was owning. I was ready for it. I was prepped mentally. I was hyped up on myself, because I was beating really fucking good players, like players that I studied. I was like, wow, like this, I'm owning. And then when I came back, yeah, I couldn't get to that. I never got that same opportunity because with that opportunity too, they didn't look at me as a player as like a toxic player or anything either. They just looked at me for what I was, and the coaches were like, "Yeah, you have a lot of potential. Like, this is pretty insane what you're doing. Like, we haven't seen anybody do this with this type of like experience. Like, that's really cool. Like, we see a lot, yeah." And then they picked up another player while I was gone, even though they said they wouldn't. But yeah, is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the takeaways from a lot of this is, and just some advice I can impart to you, while we're doing this, is that, you know, I I have a lot of, what ifs in my life. If I hadn't have done this, would this have turned
Yeah,
out this way? But I think the way to look at it is that each incremental step, whether it was a step back or a step forward, led you to the path that you've kind of taken. And so if you ultimately don't regret who you are currently as a person, you kind of can't look back and regret, oh, I should have
yeah.
done. Because otherwise, we all have
You get into
yeah,
the depressive thought process of
yeah.
like,
I mean, I,
yeah,
I still cringe at things I said when I was like, you know,
yeah,
3 or 4 years old, or I've been told that I said, I mean,
yeah,
you still have those moments, but at the same time, everything kind of led me up to who I am now, and I'm proud of who I am now.
yeah. Same.
And I would, yeah, so I would definitely, not, because you keep, saying like, well, I don't want to say I regret this, so
But
you
yeah,
try to find
because
another,
it's not a regret because it's like everything is like you said has led me up to the moment where I am now,
yeah,
who I am now, and that's like I'm perfectly okay with that. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Everything's a lot like life is a big lesson, honestly. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things that you have to learn, like make choices, and like sometimes you make the right choices, sometimes you don't. And with that, you just keep trudging along, man. You just keep going forward and forward and forward. You know what I mean?
yeah, because we've
And
all
that's
had missed
yeah.
opportunity. I mean,
Oh
that
yeah,
is a
that
common
is yeah,
reality
absolutely.
of life.
I mean, for example, my dad, his granddad, or my dad's father actually was on a plane with the guy who founded McDonald's, and the guy who founded McDonald's like pitched him the idea on the plane, and was like, "Do you want to invest in this?" And he said, "No, no bullshit. This is no bullshit at all." He's like, "Do you want to invest in this?" And he goes, and my grandpa goes, "Sorry, I don't see the idea. I don't see how this. No, I don't." And he didn't do it. Yeah. So if you're talking about like shit like that, yeah, that's a mega missed opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, I could look back
yeah,
because I mean,
yeah.
I
Some funny shit.
I thought Amazon was cool when it was a bookstore, right? And
Yeah,
and you could
yeah,
invest in it for like 20 cents or something on the
yeah,
dollar. So
yeah,
it is what it is. I had a friend,
yeah.
I had another thing where 10 years ago or whatever, I remember sitting in my friend's house. He's high as a kite, telling me about Bitcoin. You know, he's like, "No,
Yeah,
you don't understand. It's the currency of the future, man."
yeah,
I'm just kind of
yeah.
like, "Ah, oh, dude, I think
Dude,
you're,
there's all those experiences are important. I think some people like dwell on their past too much, and then they don't really move forward. But like I think that's the one thing that a lot of esports players got right is that when you do fuck up or you do make a mistake, you just got to keep trudging along.
Yeah.
Like you have to keep moving forward, otherwise you're fucked.
So I definitely like, where everything is kind of culminated for you now. Because as your friend, I'm proud of who you are because I know you've made, giant strides to change and adapt, and improve as a person. And I think that's the type of stuff that carries with you, throughout everything. I mean, eventually, even if you became a pro player tomorrow, eventually you will cease being at some point a pro player, whether,
Mm.
a year from now, 2 years,
Wait,
10
you're
years.
telling me that eventually I won't be?
Yeah.
No, no shot.
Um, and what we're left with is, who we are as a person. So I think that it's more crucial to develop that. Um, and if as I mean, yes, it's always enticing to have these opportunities of fame and money and experiences like that. But at the same time, I think again, it's a far more crucial aspect to grow as a person because
At the end of
y-
the day,
you're not.
everyone ends up dead, and you better be happy with where you ended, right? I mean, at the end of it, right? Like everyone ends up dead, famous or not.
I
So
well,
gotta be happy with who you are at the end of the day,
I just
right?
think that
That's the
there's
most important part.
yeah, I think that there's eventually your fame and your money and your experiences won't you know it won't matter at some point. I mean, it just won't.
Yeah, yeah,
So there's got to be
yeah.
something left behind, and whether it's a legacy of a family, of a namesake for a business or something like that, or the way that you affect those around you,
Mm.
I think that that's what matters the most.
I think a lot of people actually like undervalue that. Like I see a lot of people that are really like sad about themselves and stuff like that. All the time. I mean, we see it everywhere. I think something that's undervalued in like in life or in like in general, like outside of esports, outside of everything, is like the way that you affect others, even if it's just like a handful of people. Like for me, like when I stream, I average get like three viewers, something like that nowadays. And but there's some people in my community from like when I did stream a little bit more, I know I affected positively. I mean, there's a teammate that I had that I literally gave $20 to. That's all I could afford at the time to give him $20 so he could go buy a PC. And then later, like a year later, he messaged me. He goes,
Wait,
"Dude,
he
I
bought
don't
a
think
PC for $20?
no, it was just part of it,
Oh, okay,
part
okay.
of it, yeah." But he was like, "Dude, I don't think you under," because he was needing like a graphics card or something. He goes, "Dude, I just don't have the like my," because he grew up really poor, really poor. I was like, "Dude, I can give you $20. That's literally all I had." I was like, "Here's this how like if that's what it makes do like cool." But he like later messaged me that like that year and was like, "Dude, I don't think you understand how much the $20 like meant, like sincerely." He goes, after you gave me that, that was just enough to get me whatever it was, like whatever graphics card. Let me look at the message. But basically, he ended up messaging me. I was like, "Thank you, like here." Uh, uh, he just like randomly messaged me and goes, "I just want to say thank you for taking a chance on me. I don't think you really get how big of a deal $20 was. Thank you so much. You opened my eyes to a lot of things, and with that PC, he was able to do a lot of stuff, like school, like even school. Like he wasn't able to do some of the things in school because he didn't have a PC." And so I was like, yeah, dude, like, of course. But like, those are like those little things that everyone does. Like, 20, dude, $20 I'm gonna be honest, isn't a lot. Just honestly, it's just not a lot. I didn't even think of it. I was just like, yeah, here, dude. Like, here's what I got right now, you know? But like, those little like experiences that you give to people, like, if you tell someone like a nice thing, like, I mean, for example, I remember one of my ex girlfriends, like, the reason we even started dating was because I randomly gave her a hug, just randomly in the fucking hall. Because I was like, it seemed like she was like down about something. I was like, oh, how's it going? You know what I mean? It's like here, I just gave her a random hug, just randomly. It sounds stupid as fuck, because it was, because it was. But that made her day enough to where she was having such a shitty day, where it was just like she goes like, thank you, like I was sincerely down. You know what I mean? And so like, it's just small things, bro. Like it's so undervalued. You know what I mean? Saying thank you, saying I love you to close ones or to family, you know what I mean? Stuff like that is just undervalued. And those are the things that like at the end of the day, those are the things that matter more than anything else is like who you like how you affect people around you. Right? Like you can be all down and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, you have to be happy of like all my friends, they know I'm a good person, they've treated me well, you know, and stuff like that. So I don't know. Kind of a tangent about
No, 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 no.
self yeah, self value, but
Oh, it's
at the end of the
okay.
day, it's important. I feel like just people just don't talk about it. It's so weird to me because it's so important. I mean, you agree, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just it's so important. Like you don't have to affect masses. You don't have to affect a lot of people. You just affect what you can, and that's all that matters, right? As long as you're putting a positive effect on that, like you're doing amazing, right? I mean, as a person, that's like that's our I don't know. I feel like that's like I don't know. I don't know how else to word it. It's
Well,
important.
I've always held to the belief that you can't guarantee that you'll affect millions, but you can definitely affect those around you. So, that's what I think everybody that should be their
Cool.
primary focus. So it looks like though there's a couple of people that are stirring in chat wanting to ask questions. So if you don't mind,
Yeah.
I think we'll go
Shoot.
ahead and
Do the Q&A.
yeah, we'll do the Q&A.
Sure.
So anybody in chat, if you have a question or questions that you would like to ask Devin or Divine FPS, um, then fire away. All right, Kat's got her questions ready. Do you have chat open or
I just opened
okay? All right. Her first question is, do you like Megamind or Shrek more?
it. Yo, what is Megamind?
Okay.
So I guess Shrek. I don't
Yeah.
know, bro. Shit.
All right.
Yeah, I think it has to be Shrek, right? Although some memes in fucking high school fucked me up with Shrek and never watching that again.
And then she wants to know if that's a tiki behind you.
Yeah, it is. It's a tiki. Yeah, or I'm gonna be renovating my room tomorrow, like I told you. So I don't know if it'll still be up. Maybe it's one of the only things I like in my room, actually. But yeah, it's a tiki.
Oh, that is the thing that comes alive at night. I'm just gonna go ahead. Every horror movie I've ever seen. Oh, and all right, let's go to roll back. We'll scroll back up a little bit. Quirky says, or Scuffed says, "How do you work at building more self worth? Because it's hard, especially the first steps."
So for it. I mean, fuck. It depends. So if you're just talking about general self-worth or like if like let's just talk about general self-worth, like how you feel about yourself, like you have to look at what's important in life to you, like what's important to you. And if you don't like let's say now you don't feel very like happy with yourself or you don't feel contempt, then do something about it. Like do what you can, right? And if you do what you can and you try your hardest, that is legitimately that anybody can ask for. It's so repetitive, it's said all the time, but like at the end of the day, something that I had to learn that oh, that's my most important lesson to myself actually, is that as long as you give a like 110% in what you do, and even if it's enough or not enough, that's legitimately all that matters. You know what I mean? With what you have, if you do as much as you can with what you have, that is all that matters. And that is literally it. Like there's no that's it. That's like the first step. So if you're not happy about where you're at or something you're doing, you don't feel like you're good enough, then keep giving 110 and try to improve on it. And that's all you can do. And as long as you're doing that, you're moving forward with the aspect of trying to keeping that in mind that you're giving 110% every day, you're trying to work towards being better. That's all that should matter. The end goal is not what matters. It's how you reach that as a person. You know what I mean? Because let's say, for example, uh, you scam somebody for $1 million, right? This is just like a bizarre one. Scam someone for $1 million. Are you gonna be happy with that at the end of the day? Like you'll be like, yeah, fuck yeah, $1 million. But will it feel as good as if you really worked at it? Like you earned it and you can keep doing it, right? No, it's not gonna be the same because it's just not. You know what I mean? You're gonna be happy with yourself at the end of the day, right? With the decisions you made and how you got there, right? You'll be able to sleep at night. So that's in my opinion how to start building self-worth is just doing what you can. That is how you do it. You just do what you can and you give 110% every day. You know what I mean? And sometimes you aren't going to give 110% every day, but that's okay as long as like you really try to get out of bed. You know what I mean? Because bro, I mean, 2 days ago I couldn't get out of bed. I just couldn't. I was exhausted for. I've been working really hard the past like 2 weeks in Valorant, and the other day I just couldn't get out of bed, and I was like, today is that day. I'm gonna be tired, and that's okay. But tomorrow I get at it, or like later tonight I'm gonna go get at it. So yeah,
Well,
I think that's the best way.
and I would add something to that too. I think a lot of people they don't sit. eh, For instance, and I actually what I learned this from was writing. And writing, if you don't, and it can be annoying, but if you don't sit there and actually structure out a story or even a paper with a template with an outline, it becomes almost insurmountable because you just how do I conjure up a for instance a 300-page novel without any clue of what I'm doing, without any clue of any steps, where the beginning is going to be, what's going to happen in the middle, what's going to happen in the end, how's that going to resolve. And so you go through and you kind of start to make these steps. Now, where am I going with this? Well, you can't sit there and say, all right, my goal is to lose 100 pounds. Okay, how are you going to do that? You've got to break it down into what your calorie intake is going to be per day, how many days it's going to take, what exercise you're, and once you start to break things down into smaller goals, things become much more easier to achieve. For
Yeah,
instance, you know, I think a lot of people they look at like their room and they say, "All right, I need to clean the entire room." Okay, well now hang on a second. For a lot of people, I think especially who are prone to depression, if they clean the bathroom and then they get tired and they don't feel like doing the rest, then they've got this mental block. Well, I set up this goal and I failed. Okay, well how about this? Just vacuum the room. It'll take 10 minutes. And then if you want to continue cleaning, that's just bonus. But you accomplished your goal for the day. You vacuumed. And I think that positive reinforcement of okay, you are accomplishing the goals. I think that really helps to defeat an already down mindset um, by not bombarding yourself with impossible. Uh, I don't want to say impossible, but far-reaching goals right off the
oh
bat.
yeah,
You know,
no, I agree. I think like something for me that I still do it, and it's something that I have to accept is I go for very high goals. I go for something that is like honestly hard as fuck and I probably want to achieve. But in my mind, I'm going to do everything I can in my ability to reach that. But sometimes like when you don't reach that, like at the end of it, you're like, holy fuck, I feel awful. Like I didn't, you know, I mean, didn't get to do what I want. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that I did everything I could to reach that, and that's as much as I could do, right? And I have to be content with that. You know what I mean? So, but and also like to note, Scuffed, don't feel bad about asking those some like questions. I like talking about things that most people don't talk about. Like you can ask Yanni. Him and I have discussions about shit people don't want to talk about. I love that type of stuff. I find discourse and like conversation about stuff like that is extremely important because if it's not talked about, then how does it get solved? I mean, for example, like we could talk about like suicide rates among men. You know what I mean? Something like that. That is something that like not a lot of people talk about, but I found that really interesting. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. But anyways, I digress. But
Cat.
to add on to the self worth, oh sorry.
Oh no, no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. No, no.
Oh yeah, but to add on to the self worth, if you're ever like something that I learned in gaming and something that I had to tell Shaq was he didn't feel like he was a good enough player, and he felt really shitty about it. Um, but hard work is how you develop confidence in anything, and like just putting in the work and putting in the practice. So like if you're trying to work towards like something like maybe sports or like a certain thing that you're trying to get better at, like artistically or something like that, you just have to do it and practice and practice and practice. And the more you do it, the more confidence it brings because you'll know that you put in the work to get to where you're at, right? Does that make sense? So again, it's all about just doing the work and just putting 110 in as much as you can. Just doing as much as you can every day. That's like that's the main fundamental thing. And like Johnny said, you have to have a plan to do that. You can't be just doing it along like leisurely without having an actual plan in mind. You want to try to structure things out, and then when you have that structure of like what you want to do and how you're going to do it, then you really just try to go at it every day. You know what I mean? And the more hard work you put in, the better you'll feel about yourself, right? So if you're feeling tired or down, like ask yourself, can I do a little bit more? Is there something else I can do? You know what I mean? Can I do something else to recycle? Like for example, I have a structure for myself every day. I still don't work out 2 hours a day yet. I'm not there yet, but I'm happy that I'm at least accomplishing the other things in my so like here. I have like something for competing. I have 8 to 10 hours that takes up for competing, and I have like an hour, 1 to 2 hours workout, 1 hour of aim training, 4 hours of ranked minimum, 1 hour of auto review, 2 to 4 hours of scrims. but like the last couple days I've felt like kind of tired, and so I couldn't do like for one I haven't done the workout yet even, but I couldn't really do the full VOD review because I haven't worked myself up to that yet. So what I did instead was like, okay, I'm gonna try to when I can. So like if I'm like yesterday, like I was eating and I was like, I don't have anything to watch. I'm gonna watch a VOD. You know what I mean? Even though it's not an hour, at least I'm doing something and I'm working towards that goal of getting there. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a crucial mindset to have to kind of always be pushing for something. Um, and I wouldn't even go so far as to say, just to add to this stuff, I wouldn't even say that goals you might set unrealistic goals. I would say that when people set goals without any sort of plan and action, they're not unrealistic because if, my goal is to get back to benching 300 pounds, I've done over that before. So it's not unrealistic. I've done it. But how do I obtain
So
it? So a goal like that becomes, I would not say unreachable. I would not say unobtainable. I would say it's currently inaccessible until you come up with a plan of action. Um, and let's see here. With that being said, though, I know that other people were having questions, so I don't want to take too much time. Um, Kat had a question. Let me scroll up, see if I can find it. How do you become a pro and not be scared of people making fun of you?
I've gotten bullied my whole career. Legitimately, bro. I, oh man, people are gonna make fun of you at the end of the day. You're gonna make some mistake. You're gonna fuck up, and at the end of the day, it is what it is, and it's part of the course. And unfortunately, you have to come to the conclusion that there's nothing you can do about it. You have to affect what you can affect, right? And there's some things that you can't, right? For example, the opportunities I get, stuff like that, I can affect with how well I play. But at the end of the day, I can play extremely well, like in Overwatch. There was a certain point where I was playing the best I've ever played in my career, and I didn't get any opportunities, right? That's not something I can affect, right? Because of past stuff I did before. So yes, I could technically affect it, but within the current time, I couldn't, right? I'm not going to be able to change people's minds. If they dislike me, they dislike me. You know what I mean? I can try to compensate for like say I'm sorry, blah blah blah, do stuff, and if they still don't like me, out of my control, right? Um, but I think the best quote too is I think a lot of people it's kind of people think that this is gonna sound so bad. People think that they're more important than they are in terms of like, for example, if I play bad in a game, they're gonna forget about it in a day. Just realistically, like in a ranked game, they're gonna forget about it. Um, and that's something that you need to understand that you're not as important as you think you are, and that's just is what it is, and that's okay, and that's good. That's good for learning and stuff like that. You can have like a shitty day one day, and people will forget about it in 2 days. And let's say it's on a larger scale. Like for example, there's a player in V1 or something, and he or no, it was a fanatic. He did something so stupid, so fucking stupid on in a match. But I'm gonna be honest. After 2 weeks, people have already forgot about it. Like we'll mention it here and there and be like, "Oh, that's Mimi. That was funny." But at the end of the day, people will forget with time, right? And that's I don't know. There's not a way to prevent people from making fun of you if you're like bad or whatever. But what you can do is how you deal with it, right? That's all you can affect. Does that make sense? And most of the time, people don't. To be honest.
Well,
And
and I
when they do, they're incels most of the time. To be honest. So, like, I'm just gonna be honest. Like, people like that are just assholes, and assholes are out there in the world, unfortunately. So, and how do you deal with an asshole? That's kind of the better question, right? It's like you just don't like you don't have to like provoke. You don't have to like respond. It's like you said. Remember when that guy was like provoking me? Got that knee jerk reaction out of me to say something really dumb. It's the same thing. I should have just like ignored it. I shouldn't have engaged. It's the same sort of deal.
well, and I would also add too, Kat. You're always going to have criticism. You're always going to have opposition, and it's funny that we talk about this. And I understand why people get frustrated, but at the same time, it's a huge meme for me. Is that these streamers are getting upset about these stream lists where people are rating their stream. You know,
People
accord.
getting mad at that?
Yeah, there's people getting mad at that.
What?
And
Bro, that's preference.
and
What?
here's the thing. Here's the
Whack.
thing.
Whack.
If if you I don't want to be mean about this, but it's funny how some people can have, hundreds or thousands of viewers and have had the confidence to put themselves out there in front of that many people every day and then be so insecure that they find a list that's not even a TOS list. It's not anything. It's just like basically good streamer, meh streamer, bad streamer type of list. And you're always going to face criticism, and the more popular you become, the more you're going to expose yourself to criticism. Now, how do you handle it? Well, there's essentially three things that you kind of have to factor in. Number one is that what actual impact do these people have on my life? If somebody thinks you're bad at Overwatch, okay, what real impact does that have? Not really any, because if you continue to play, you'll get better. And who's saying it? If you're in bronze and the people saying it are in bronze, what right do they have? They're on the same level as you. What right do they have to critique bad, good,
Yeah,
okay?
that's how I got into Overwatch, bro.
Yeah,
Somebody literally told me you'll never be good, you're dog shit. He literally, word for word, he told me you'll never be good, you are terrible, you are horseshit. Like you're never gonna do anything in this game.
it can affect some people with mental health problems though, but that's the thing though, Scuffed, is that you're going to run into people um, who they either are ignorant to that or they don't care. And you have to unfortunately learn to deal with those people. We can argue all day long on whether or not it makes it right or it makes it wrong. Obviously, it's not right, but I mean, it it's a form of, you know, of life. I mean, I mean, the people that bullied me when I went to school because I was in a different religion. I mean, what happened to them? Well, one of them almost became a famous athlete. Another one's a teacher. I mean, and I could go on these tirades on social media about how is this person a teacher when they did this and this and that. But at the end of the day, it's not going to solve what happened. There's no resolution to be had. And, causing if my life has become so downtrodden that causing another to suffer is where I get my enjoyment. It's not really, that's not where you should be in life at all. And it won't ever make me a happy person or anybody a happy person to see other people be miserable. I mean, that's just all that happens then is you create two people that are miserable. You don't create one it's not like some type of emotion vampire where you can just siphon off, their happiness by making them miserable. So, you know, when it comes to that stuff, I mean, you're going to have people and I don't have Devin's per se experience, but when I was in silver, I had people that, I mean, you name it, they said it to me. And I remember in particular, in low plat, there was a dude. It was on Hanamura. It was way before roll queue, and I was on tank, and he was a Genji one trick. And this is back when I had Instalock DPS is my battle tag name. Um, and I'll never forget that at the end of it, the dude said, um, we'll climb. Everybody in this game will climb except for you, etc., etc. Well, next season I was in Masters, or not next season, 2 seasons later I was in Masters, and just out of curiosity, I checked the old overbuff, and this dude was still like he had actually dropped. He was like 2,800, and he dropped to like 2,400. And so, the thing about it is that you can, if you want a simplistic driving force, it's that if you don't like this person over here, do you want that person to be right?
Hmm.
And if you don't, then you can prove them wrong, by, you know, grinding, whatever it is in life. Um, but you're
Success is the ultimate revenge, I
yeah,
think
you're
is the quote, right? Or some shit along that.
living well. Living well is the best revenge.
Yeah.
Um, but you're quirky. You're I'd love to tell you that it gets to a point where people don't say stuff, or where no, they are always going to say stuff. They're always going to say stuff. I mean, look at how people treat each other on like Twitter, for God's sakes. I mean, we won't go into it here, but I mean, you can't have a political discussion with people on Twitter without them accusing you of like you wanting to end the world or something. Like, I mean, it's both sides. So I
Yeah, it's
mean,
bad.
so it's just one of those things where, and I can't speak for Devin, but I will. But I can speak for myself. Obviously, I would never tell you that it's easy. It's not. Obviously, I've gotten tilted on stream with Overwatch before.
Dealing with
Um,
bullying,
what?
right? Dealing with bullying.
Well, dealing with people, yeah, that are bullying, or people that are out to like get you in terms of like hurting your
It
feelings
is
or something.
it is never easier, but it does get easier the more you do it.
Yeah.
I will say that. The more you put yourself in a situation where you're uncomfortable or or let's say like you're being like berated like that, like the more it happens, the more you get familiar with the feeling and how you deal with it. But it doesn't the things that they can say, there's certain people that are really good at getting like gotcha moments, and that shit always is gonna stink. But how you deal with it, that's where honestly it can either tear you down or it can build you up, right? Like I told you guys, like the way I got into competing was the guy told me I'd never be good at the game. I could have either been like, fuck, you're right, or you know, prove you wrong. You know what I mean? That's kind of depending on what they're saying and stuff like that. It's hard. Like for example, I have people in Overwatch who would always tell me you're tier three hard stock, blah blah blah, and you just kind of have to deal with it, honestly. And it sucks, especially when it's like masses, because dude, there's 2 seasons where I was playing Overwatch and I had people ending my games, people telling me I was hard stick tier three, telling me I had people telling me to kill myself. It was crazy. I had never thought in my life that I would have to deal with something like that. But the way I got through it was I talked to my friends about it, thought it out, and they basically told me why I was stupid. Like I surrounded myself with good people, and then I also realized that those people don't matter. And even if they did have some sort of effect on what I was going to do, what does it change? It doesn't change anything. Realistically, I have no effect on what they think, right? So why bother? You know, I mean, what matters to me is how I view myself and what I can do about my insecurities. Like if I don't feel like I've been working hard enough, then I'll work a little bit harder. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So you don't have effect on what other people say about you, but you do have the effect of what you think about yourself. And that's legitimately what you need to understand is that is what matters. People will always bully, people will always make fun of you, not consistently, not always, but when it does happen, it happens, right? But what matters is what you think about yourself and what you are doing, right? If they're saying you're not good enough and you're not good and you feel like you're not good yet, then what that does is okay, I need to work a little bit harder. That's all that should be in your mind. It shouldn't be fuck, I feel so bad, I'm not good enough. Like then what? What is the then what? Okay, then I need to work harder. I need to study more. I need to do what? Right? That's all that matters. It's how you perceive yourself. And if you don't have a good opinion of yourself, then how do you change that? And that's where, like we talked earlier, those are like the steps of how you do that. So, at least in my opinion,
And I
my
would add
experience.
one last thing for a lot of you all too. If we are talking about as well in terms of if you need to take a step back and separate yourself from social media,
I
right?
did that.
Yeah, video games, or competitive games, I should say. If it's not essential to your job, there's nothing stopping you from, and I'm not saying this in any mean way, but there's nothing stopping you from,
Being a break.
yeah, backslash uninstall, like, and not dealing with it. Because if it's something to where and I've said this before on stream, and I will continue to say it on stream. I know enough people in the Overwatch community that I don't know necessarily through my own merits of play, but I know enough people through the Overwatch community that through connections and hosts and raids and all that stuff, I could be doing a lot more in terms of viewership, subs, etc., playing Overwatch. But I'm not going to subject myself to that for 8 hours a day because I know what it would do to my mental. I mean, you all have seen what it can do to my mental playing it for 2 hours. So, knowing that, I have detached myself from the game for my mental health. Built different to be able to handle the pressure too.
I don't think
Possibly,
I don't
possibly.
think everyone I don't think everyone's built differently. I think it comes down to more experience with it and how you, and just like again, like it's like the more you like it's the same situation. It's like public speaking, right? The more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. You'll never be comfortable with some people, but you get more comfortable with it, I think, right? Like some people are naturally more public speakers, but for those that aren't, like for example, like think of all the tech heads, man. Do you really think those people are social? Like no. Like I'm gonna be honest, they're just not. Like I'm telling you now, they're not social people, but they had to learn those skills and put themselves in uncomfortable positions to get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's kind of a weird thing, and it sounds like a motivational thing. It sounds cringy, but it's true. It's really, really true. You have to get uncomfortable being uncomfortable with that type of situation.
And there's nothing stopping you as well from taking, in Devin and I have had this conversation. I've had this conversation with a lot of people before too. If you don't like the way that somebody treats you, you can also, yes, there's the emotional response you might have to it. There's the proving them wrong, as Devin said, but there's also the fact that you can take a lesson from it, and that's that you don't want to treat people like that. And I think, and this might be a controversial opinion, but I think that sometimes, we don't know that the light socket shocks us until we touch it. And I think that we don't know how it feels to be emotionally attacked in some of these situations until it happens to us. And once you know that, oh God, that feels terrible, you know not to do it to other people. Or
Facts.
some cases you do. Some people take it and they use it to lash out as motivation to lash out. But I think a lot of people, it can be it can be a reminder of, you know, I knew how I felt when this happened, and I don't want it to happen to anybody else. With that being said, Kat had two questions, and then I think Quirky had one last one, and we'll do that.
Mm.
Let me
Damn.
scroll up, see if Kat is still there. Kat did ask. Oh yeah. So one of the questions that I don't know if these were the two questions that she meant when she said she had two more, but she wanted to know if the next community day, if we play Overwatch, if you would like to join.
If I have time, yeah, I'm always down.
Okay. And then I think she also asked, uh, want to know if you all could be friends and how are you so brave?
uh, I don't know. I I don't perceive myself as someone brave, to be honest. I just it's something it's the same thing of getting comfortable being uncomfortable, and like my mentality as a person generally speaking is always trying to improve myself. And so originally when I was younger, I found myself being quite not brave, or I don't know, the
Timid.
opposite of that. Yeah, I was very timid, and so I didn't like that about myself, and so I wanted to prove it. So I had to put myself in situations where I was going to be uncomfortable, and I still do that. You know what I mean? To this day, it's practice, right? I think there's a YouTube series I used to watch. It was about picking up girls, and it was this cringiest shit. But something that I picked off of it was that yeah, you genuinely have to get comfortable being uncomfortable and putting yourself in stupid situations. Not saying put yourself in stupid situations. I'll be clear on that. But put yourself in situations where you are uncomfortable, and that's how you the only way to better yourself in in that way, right? Like nobody's just right off the bat brave from the start, in my opinion. There's things that you have to go through and experience to really fully understand and how to approach that.
Oh, and I think, just going off of that too, one of the it's funny because you mentioned those dating videos. I've seen some of them, and I know that the level of sheer cringiness that you're talking about.
It's
I
so bad.
but I will say one thing about those guys, and that's that a lot of people don't understand this is the takeaway. The reason, okay, that those guys that their I don't want to call it methodology, but that why them asking out people works. It's not how they look. It's not even necessarily their method, right? Because of how cringy it is sometimes, but it's the fact that they do it. They go up and they ask them. And you won't ever know, girl, guy, whoever you're asking out in just terms of dating, you won't ever know if you don't ask. And, the worst that, as they always say, the worst that somebody can say is no, right? If you go up to somebody and say, hey, can I get your number? And they say no. That's the exchange. That's literally the exchange, right?
That was literally me 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's the exchange. Your tongue won't fall out. You know, they won't post. What a loser on. I can't believe this person asked me out.com. I mean, it won't happen. It won't happen, right? Um, and that's it. As far as too, if you ask somebody out, in terms of you run into somebody at the bookstore and you ask them out, you can go back to the bookstore. Like it's not off limits. It's just yeah. People, you get.
I still have to go to that shoe store.
I mean, but there's nothing wrong with it.
No, not at all. She literally told me to come back. She's like, "Yeah, you're cool."
And also
Funny.
too, you know, if you ask somebody out because you think they're attractive, you think you're the only one in the history forever that's asked them out. Realistically, so I mean, especially if they tell you that they have a significant other. Well, then clearly
Yeah.
somebody else thought that too to ask them out. So it's not their first experience. So
Yeah,
um,
I think something to mention too is like I still have performance anxiety when it comes to esports occasionally. Like in my last tournament, I didn't play as well as I wanted in Valorant, but what I'm gonna do with that is I'm gonna learn from the experience and try to fix some of the issues and try to make be more confident in my ability by practicing more and being more ready for those types of situations. So, I mean, it's all learning and moving on. My last question, I guess, is both of you, how did you get over this? I just turn on stream and I say fuck it. That is literally it. That's the extent of it. To be honest with you, I don't really think about it. If I don't feel like a face cam, I turn off my face cam. That's the only insecurity or anxious thing that I have in my stream is I don't like face cam all the time. It feels a little weird to like have someone watch me, like me specifically, like my body and stuff like that. Because like I yell, my neck's bent forward. I have the gamer posture. I got all that shit. So that's the only time that I'm like like that's the only sort of anxiousness I get on my stream. But when I don't feel like it, I just don't do it. But for streaming, if you have anxiousness about streaming, what I would recommend is make it a goal to stream when you're feeling a bit anxious. It sounds stupid. It sounds kind of reproductive, but if like I said, it's you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and the more you do it, the less you start to experience that type of feeling. Honestly, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. To go back to it sounds cringy to go back to the dating advice, but like it's similar to like if you're not comfortable asking someone out, the more you do it, the more it becomes easier. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. It's just you just have to do it more. Push through it. Try to.
yeah. And as far as anxiety of streaming, and this might not be what somebody wants to hear, but I mean, there's always going to be a little bit. I mean, there's
Yeah,
always going,
it's facts.
uh, I mean, what if nobody shows up today, right? Or I'm doing.
Bro, I just turn off the viewer count. That's all I do. I just turn off my
Well,
viewer
no, I,
count.
I know, but I mean, you think
Yeah.
like, but there's like a whole host of. It's not just if nobody shows up, but it's like if nobody shows up, if I do a
Yeah.
subathon, if nobody subs, if I play a new game, uh, am I going to be absolute just crap at this game? And because, and I'm not even talking competitive games. I
Oh
remember
yeah.
the very first game or one of the very first games that I played was The Beast Inside, and I got stuck on the first puzzle for like 30
I was about
minutes.
to say, watching people do puzzle games is fucking funny.
Yeah,
It's so funny.
and so, here I am, and you're trying to get the story moving along. I'm not even to the first jump scare, and I'm pissed because I can't get this puzzle box open. And the somebody in my stream literally told me the answer. They're like, it's there, and I'm like, oh, I hate life right now. But I mean, there's always going to be some level of trepidation, and I think, I jokingly said I guess that's counterintuitive, but I really feel like that shouldn't be counterintuitive, because if you know that every single person who goes live in front of a camera or who goes out to, perform on stage, that they're still dealing with it, I think it makes it easier. And also too, yeah, I mean, realistically, when you're first starting out streaming, I mean, you're basically streaming to your friends. You've already talked to these people, right? It's no different than, uh, you're just talking to them in front of a camera, or they hear your voice, if you don't use a cam. But there's really no difference. I mean, talking to them in chat. And that's why I always say be who you are, on stream, outside of stream, because then you don't have to worry about keeping some weird story straight about your persona or something. Who you are on cam is who you are off cam, and then you know that when people show up consistently and find you through other streams and stuff, that they like you for you, right? They don't like you because put on a
Mm.
bunny suit.
I think to go along with that though, you do have to put in a little bit more energy, I think, into streaming than you do just like having a conversation with people. Or at least for some people. But not changing like your personality or the things your interests and stuff like that. But I mean like putting in
See, that's why I talk
energy
in all
into just
caps.
talking more. Just talking more.
Get
Because
my
like for me, I'm a quiet person, but like on stream, I talk definitely a little bit more.
Well, and but I see, that's the thing though, right? That's
Mm.
not necessarily what I mean by a persona. I always think
Oh
two of
yeah,
the wrestlers, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
yeah. Yeah.
No, no, no. But I
Good.
mean Jim Ross, who
Yeah.
the announcer, who is actually good, I think best IRL friends with Steve Austin, literally said, I forget what Steve Austin's real name is. Oh, now he's listed under American actor. Um, Anderson, Steve Anderson. Um, but dude, he's almost 60. Good lord. Um, but he said that Stone Cold is just Steve Anderson turned up to 11. You know, Steve Austin drinks beer and drives a pickup truck. Steve Anderson drinks beer and drives a pickup truck. Stone Cold likes to go hunting. Steve Anderson likes to go hunting, right?
Like XQC. XQC is very much just turned up to 11. He's just same
Yeah,
person, but just turned up to
it's
or 100.
so that's not necessarily a persona. That's just who you are,
Yeah.
um, energized or exaggerated to effect. But,
Mm.
as far as who you are, what you believe, et cetera, the values that you hold, if they're consistent, you don't, have anything to kind of play around with, then I think that alleviates a lot of fear. Like I said,
Mm.
because then people are interested in you for you. Um, so yeah, it is what it is, and I think just like anything else, is kind of Devin's making the point. You got to get out there and do it. If you like it,
I think that's the one thing if I have to give anyone advice is just literally the Nike fucking saying or whatever. Just
right?
fucking do it. Like literally just go out and do it. Everyone talks about doing it but you just have to get going on it.
All right, buddy. Well, if there were no more questions, let me see here real quick. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Doesn't look like it. So as always, is customary, we are going to allow our guests, if they are not going to um, stream. Are you going to stream?
Not for a bit,
Okay.
no.
Then who would you like to raid?
Let's see. Who's streaming? I got you. This guy named Yanni Mays. Can we do
No,
that guy?
no.
But no, this person. She's really cool. Really, really cool. one of my good friends. I don't think you guys have met yet, actually. But yeah, she's one of my really good friends.
Oh, can you put their name in chat?
Oh shit, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. That's their that's their name.
Okay, 0.
Hearing.
Okay, cool. All right, everybody. So, want to thank our wonderful guest again, Devin or Divine FPS. Um, as always, we're super appreciative of people coming on to the podcast and talking, and we always have a wonderful experience. As I've said before, it really gets interesting when you have also too somebody that you're close friends with, because it's not a natural thing to just be like, so where did you grow up? That's not a natural part of a conversation.
Yeah.
So it is interesting to get this information, and as always, I find it fascinating to learn more and more uh, people. Wait, I want to sub to Devin. Okay, well, if you want to do that, Cat, it's Devin or Divine. I sorry, FPS. If can we get a shout out for that again? Hang on, there's a shout out real quick.
Appreciate it.
There we go. And yeah, it's a wonderful experience. So real quick at 11. So here in about 3 hours p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be interviewing Fails and Luck for our next podcast. So I hope you all can make it. Devin, thanks so much for being on,
Thank you. It was fun. I enjoyed myself quite a bit.
and we will catch you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye guys. Have a good one.
All right, we got the raid going on. Now let me end.